There is a reason you find yourself falling into the same emotional traps, and it is likely not what you think. Tonight, I will share the discovery made by a Vietnamese monk during one of the most devastating wars in history, a discovery that completely altered our understanding of why we get stuck in cycles of anger, anxiety, and pain. This is not just another self-help method or positive thinking technique. This is ancient wisdom, tested by those who faced unimaginable suffering and discovered a way through that does not involve fighting yourself or forcing change. By the end of this journey, you will understand why trying to push away difficult emotions only strengthens them, and learn the precise method that dissolves them instead. Welcome to this space, where the goal is not to become someone else, but to recognize the peace that has always been inside you. As you listen, something remarkable is unfolding around the world. In Tokyo, someone finds comfort in these words as their day begins. In London, another person relaxes as evening falls. Perhaps you are in New York, preparing for sleep, or in Sydney, taking a peaceful walk. If it feels right, share where you are listening from. Not because you have to, but because there is something beautiful in knowing that we all seek the same peace, even across time zones. Get comfortable, wrap yourself in something soft, dim the lights, or just let your body relax. Because what you are about to discover will change how you respond to every difficult moment for the rest of your life. Here's what I know about you. Even though we have never met, you have tried to control your reactions and sometimes succeeded. Yet the patterns always return. You have probably told yourself to stay positive or to simply let it go, only to find that the more you fight certain feelings, the more persistent they become. You might even feel frustrated for not being able to just choose peace. But here's the truth, that will change everything. Those patterns are not a sign of failure. They are doorways to freedom, if you know how to approach them. During the Vietnam War, when brothers were forced to kill one another with foreign weapons and ideologies, a young monk named Thich Nhat Hanh discovered something that preserved his sanity and eventually transformed millions of lives. Amid the chaos of war, with bombs falling and his country being torn apart, he found that the enemy was not external. It was the habit of fighting against reality itself. This wisdom came from studying Avalokiteshvara, the one who listens to the cries of the world. But this figure was not just an ancient symbol from Buddhist texts. It was a capacity present in every human being, the ability to be present with suffering without adding to it, to listen without trying to fix, to offer the kind of attention that actually heals. Think about the last time someone truly listened to you, not waiting for their turn to speak, not trying to fix your problems, but truly hearing you. How did that feel in your body? What happened to your breath, your tension, your sense of being alone with whatever you were carrying? That same quality of listening is what transforms the difficult emotions inside us. But here's where it gets surprising. It is not about eliminating anger, anxiety, or sadness. It is about changing your relationship with them so completely that they lose their power to control your life. Tonight, you will discover why the Buddha compared fighting our emotions to trying to stop a river with our bare hands. You will learn the practice that turns you into the riverbank, instead solid, present, and unshaken by whatever flows through. You will hear the story of a young boy who broke a generational pattern of anger. That single breakthrough did not just heal his future, it somehow reached back and healed his ancestors as well. Most importantly, you will experience what Thich Nhat Hanh called arriving at your true home, a place of peace that does not depend on perfect circumstances or pleasant emotions. It is a home that cannot be taken by difficult people, challenging situations, or even your own mental storms. This is not about becoming a monk or learning complex meditation techniques. These are simple practices that work in your daily life in traffic, with difficult family members, or while lying awake at 3 a.m. They are as practical as they are profound, gentle as they are powerful. So settle in, let your breath slow, and prepare to discover why the path to freedom begins, not with fighting your patterns, but with learning to listen to them with the same compassion you would offer a frightened child. Now let me share with you the most powerful healing force in the world. It requires no special training, costs nothing, yet most of us have forgotten how to use it. It is the art of truly listening, not just to the words someone speaks, but to the pain beneath the words, the hope hiding behind the anger, the love trying to express itself through frustration. In Buddhist tradition, there is a figure whose name holds the key to transforming suffering, Avalokiteshvara, the one who listens to the cries of the world. In Vietnamese, this compassionate presence is known as Quan the Am, and in Chinese as Guan Yin. Regardless of language or culture, the essence remains the same, the recognition that deep, compassionate listening has the power to heal wounds that nothing else can touch. This is not about having supernatural abilities or solving everyone's problems with the right words. It is about something far more accessible. The understanding that when we offer someone our complete, non-judgmental presence, we create a sacred space where transformation can begin. Thich Nhat Hanh discovered this truth during one of the darkest times in his life, as he witnessed how simple, mindful listening could heal even the deepest wounds caused by war and separation. He realized that Avalokiteshvara was not an external figure, but a capacity inside each of us. According to Buddhist teachings, every person carries this seed of compassionate listening within their consciousness. It is like having a hidden room in your house, filled with everything you need to help both yourself and others find peace. The question is not whether you have this capacity, you do. The question is whether you will learn to water this seed through practice, allowing it to grow strong enough to manifest when it is needed most. Imagine your consciousness as a garden where many different seeds are planted in the soil of your awareness. There is a seed of anger planted perhaps by years of frustration. There is also a seed of patience, strengthened by every time you stayed calm when provoked. A seed of fear, watered by experiences of loss and uncertainty, but also a seed of courage grown from every challenge you have faced and overcome. Which seeds flourish in your garden depends on which ones receive your attention and energy through your daily choices. Every time someone speaks to you with irritation, and you respond with more irritation, you water the seed of anger. But every time someone shares their pain, and you respond with presence and understanding, you nourish the seeds of compassion and wisdom. This is not just a beautiful philosophy. It is describing how your brain actually rewires itself based on the patterns you choose repeatedly. Let me tell you a story that perfectly illustrates this. Every summer, a young boy would visit a peaceful monastery in the French countryside. Along with his younger sister, he was eager to discover practices that could bring more peace into his life. But this boy carried a heavy burden, one that many children know too well. He had a troubled relationship with his father. The pattern was always the same, heartbreakingly familiar. Whenever the boy fell down and hurt himself, instead of receiving comfort or care, his father would immediately shout at him. "How could you be so careless?" his father would demand. "Why were not you paying attention?" The boy would stand there, bleeding and in pain, feeling not just the physical hurt, but the deeper wound of being rejected in his moment of need. Year after year, the boy made himself a promise. When he grew up and had children, he would never be like his father. If his child fell and hurt themselves, he would not shout or blame them. He would rush to help, offer comfort, and make everything better. This determination lived in his heart like a flame, driving his commitment to break the cycle of harsh responses that had caused him so much pain. One particular summer day at the monastery, the boy was playing peacefully when his sister and another girl decided to play on a hammock together. Children being children, they laughed and swung, lost in the joy of the moment. But then something went wrong. The other girl fell from the hammock and hit the ground hard, blood immediately beginning to flow from her injury. What happened next changed this boy's understanding of himself forever. As he saw the injured girl lying there bleeding, instead of rushing to help with compassion, he felt a sudden surge of anger rising in his chest. The words he wanted to say were shockingly familiar. Stupid. How could you do something like that? In that moment of crisis, all his good intentions evaporated, and he discovered something that shook him to his core. He was exactly like his father. But here's where the story takes a remarkable turn. Because this boy had been practicing mindfulness at Plum Village, he was able to catch himself before the harsh words actually left his mouth. He had developed enough awareness to recognize what was happening inside him. The same pattern of blame and irritation that had hurt him so deeply was now rising within him, ready to hurt someone else. Instead of speaking, he stepped back and observed as others came to help the injured girl. His heart pounded with the realization of what he had almost done. As he walked slowly, mindfully to calm himself, breathing deeply as he had learned in the monastery, a profound understanding began to dawn. He was not fundamentally different from his father. The same energy of anger and impatience that had been passed down to him was now inside him, ready to be passed on to the next generation if he did not transform it. He began to see that his father had not been a monster, nor a bad person. His father, too, had inherited patterns of reactivity, probably passed down from his father and his father before that. This insight completely changed how the boy felt about his family. Instead of seeing himself as a victim of his father's harshness, he began to understand that both he and his father were victims of what Buddhism calls habit energy, deeply ingrained patterns of reaction passed down through generations unless someone learns to transform them. His anger toward his father began to dissolve, replaced by a desire to break the cycle, not through blame, but through understanding and practice. He realized that if he did not learn to work with his own inherited patterns, he would inevitably pass them on to his future children, perpetuating the same cycle of hurt that had caused him so much pain. But he also saw something hopeful. By learning to respond differently, through mindfulness and compassion, he could heal not only his own future, but somehow reach back in time and heal the ancestors who had carried the same struggling patterns. When that intention to practice and transform arose in his heart, something beautiful happened. His resentment toward his father melted away. It was replaced by a deep desire to go home and tell his father, "I have the same kind of energy inside me that you do, and I want us to practice together so we can both be free." This breakthrough did not come from fighting against his inherited patterns or suppressing his anger. It came from the practice of mindful awareness, the ability to clearly see what was arising within him without being swept away by it. This is the foundation of all Buddhist practice, learning to observe our mental and emotional patterns with the same compassionate attention that Avalokiteshvara offers to the cries of the world. But how do we develop this capacity for clear seeing in our own lives? How do we learn to listen deeply, not only to others, but also to the voices within ourselves? Those worried thoughts, angry reactions, and inherited patterns that seem to rise automatically whenever we are triggered. The answer lies in the discovery that Nhat Hanh made during his own journey through suffering and exile. When the Vietnam War tore his country apart, forcing brothers to kill each other with foreign weapons and ideologies. Thich Nhat Hanh and his community started a movement they called "Do Not Shoot Your Brother." They voiced the concerns of ordinary people who did not want the war, who saw through the artificial divisions imposed by outside powers. But their calls for peace were silenced by both sides of the conflict. Sometimes, the only way they could get the world's attention was through the ultimate sacrifice. Monks and nuns would burn themselves alive, not out of despair, but as acts of pure love, desperate attempts to awaken people to the madness of the violence. In 1966, when Cornell University invited him to give a series of lectures about the true situation in Vietnam, Thich Nhat Hanh intended to stay in America for only 3 months. But those 3 months stretched into 38 years of exile. The South Vietnamese government revoked his citizenship and banned him from returning, seeing his message of peace as a threat to their war effort. For nearly 4 decades, he could not go back to the land he loved, the temples where he had trained, or the people he wanted to serve. During the early years of his exile, despite being an experienced Dharma teacher with many students and having a deep intellectual understanding of Buddhist philosophy, Thich Nhat Hanh found himself struggling with a profound sense of homelessness. He traveled from city to city, giving lectures, sleeping just a night or 2 in each place. He would wake up in the middle of the night, disoriented, unsure of where he was. He had to breathe deeply to orient himself. What city, what country, what continent, the constant displacement was exhausting and disorienting. Night after night, he would dream of returning to his root temple in central Vietnam, climbing the familiar green hill with its beautiful trees. In these dreams, he would make it halfway up the hill before waking up to the harsh reality that he was still in exile, still separated from everything that felt like home. The same dream would repeat again and again, each time breaking his heart a little more. But then something shifted. Through his practice of mindfulness and deep listening to his own experience, he began to understand that home is not a place you go to, it is a way of being you can cultivate anywhere. By breathing mindfully, walking with awareness, and focusing his complete attention on the present moment, he discovered what he called his true home, a state of peace and presence that could not be disturbed by external circumstances. He developed a simple practice that became the foundation of his teaching. As he breathed in, he would silently tell himself, "I have arrived." Breathing out, he would say, "I am home," not, "I will arrive someday when conditions are perfect," or "I will be home when I can return to Vietnam." But, "I have arrived right here, right now, in this moment. I am home in my own skin, in my own breath, in my own awareness." This was not a denial of his situation, or pretending that exile did not hurt. It was the recognition that beneath all the changing circumstances of life, whether good or bad, pleasant or difficult, there is a place of peace that can't be disturbed. This is what the Buddha called our true nature, the awareness that observes all experiences but is not destroyed by any of them. Once Thich Nhat Hanh found this true home within himself, the dreams of climbing the hill in Vietnam stopped. He no longer suffered from his inability to return to his homeland, even though he still wished to teach there and serve his people. He had discovered something that could never be taken away: the capacity to be fully present and at peace, wherever life took him. This discovery changed everything about how he understood freedom and suffering. He realized that most of our pain does not come from our circumstances themselves, but from our relationship to those circumstances. It comes from our resistance to what is, our attachment to how things should be, and our rejection of how they actually are. When we fight against the reality of our experiences, we create suffering. But when we accept what is, When we learn to embrace our current moment as it is without judgment or resistance, we find peace. Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings were grounded in this truth. By cultivating an internal state of peace and presence, we can create a refuge that is independent of the external world. This true home is not a physical place, but a state of being that exists within us, no matter where we are or what we are facing. This understanding of home, of peace, is what ultimately set Thich Nhat Hanh free. It is the same freedom that each of us can access, no matter what life brings. The external world may change, but the peace within us remains constant, unshaken by the storms of life. By the time he passed from this world, Thich Nhat Hanh had helped millions of people find their own true home. He had shared the simple practice that transformed his own suffering into a source of wisdom, offering others the tools to find peace in their own lives. His legacy is a reminder that freedom is not something we have to seek outside of ourselves. It is already within us, waiting to be recognized. When we learn to listen deeply to our experience, without immediately trying to change it, we discover that even difficult emotions and challenging situations have something to teach us. But how does this relate to the art of compassionate listening that can transform our daily relationships and inner struggles? When Thich Nhat Hanh spoke of Avalokiteshvara, he was describing the same quality of presence that allowed him to find peace in exile. It is the ability to be with whatever arises in ourselves or others without needing to fix, change, or escape from it. This does not mean becoming passive or accepting harmful situations. It means developing the stability and clarity to respond wisely, rather than simply reacting from our conditioning. When someone shares their pain with you, the practice of deep listening means offering them the same spacious presence that you would want in your most difficult moments. You breathe gently and listen, not just to their words, but to the human heart underneath those words. You do not try to solve their problems or change their perspective. You simply create a safe space for their truth to be expressed and heard. In that space of acceptance and compassion, healing naturally begins to happen. The same practice applies to your relationship with your own inner experience. When anxiety arises, instead of immediately trying to think your way out of it or distract yourself from it, you can pause and say, "Anxiety is here. What are you trying to tell me?" Often you will discover that underneath the surface, worry is actually care. You are anxious about something because it matters to you. When you listen to your emotions with this kind of gentle curiosity, they often transform into something more workable. This is the practice that the young boy at the monastery learned. The practice that allowed him to see his anger clearly without being controlled by it. It is the practice that allowed Thich Nhat Hanh to transform the pain of exile into a deeper understanding of true freedom. And it is the practice that can allow you to break free from the automatic patterns that have been running your life, creating space for new possibilities to emerge. Understanding this practice of deep listening requires recognizing something that modern life often obscures. We live in a world where most people have forgotten how to be truly present with each other. We have become skilled at multitasking, at thinking about the next thing while we are supposedly engaged with the current thing, at listening to respond rather than listening to understand. But according to Buddhist wisdom, this scattered attention is one of the root causes of our suffering and disconnection. When Thich Nhat Hanh speaks of the collective energy of mindfulness, he is describing something that can be experienced even in small moments of genuine presence. Imagine sitting with a friend who is going through a difficult divorce, and instead of offering advice or sharing your own relationship experiences, You simply breathe quietly and give them your complete attention. Something shifts. In the space between you, a quality of safety and acceptance that allows deeper truths to emerge. Your friend might start by complaining about their ex-partner's faults. But as they feel truly heard, they might begin to share their own fears about being alone, their grief over the dreams that won't come true, their worry about how the children are handling the changes. This is Avalokiteshvara in action, not as a distant spiritual figure, but as the natural flowering of human compassion. When we stop trying to fix or change and simply offer our presence, the healing does not come from what you say or what advice you give. It comes from the recognition your friend experiences of being truly seen and accepted in their struggle. This kind of witnessing has the power to transform shame into self-compassion, isolation into connection, and despair into hope. But developing this capacity requires understanding what Buddhism teaches about the nature of consciousness itself. According to this ancient wisdom, our consciousness has different layers, like a vast lake, with depths that most of us never explore. On the surface, we have what is called mind consciousness, our immediate thoughts, reactions, and everyday mental activity. This is the level where we experience our moment-to-moment responses to life, our planning, worrying, and remembering. But beneath this surface layer lies what is known as store consciousness, the deeper realm where all our experiences, memories, and inherited patterns are held. The young boy at Plum Village had been carrying his father's pattern of angry response in this store consciousness, probably since he was very small. Every time his father had shouted at him for getting hurt, that experience was stored not just as a memory, but as an imprint that shaped how he would respond to situations involving injury or mistakes. This is what Buddhism calls habit energy, the accumulated patterns that arise automatically when certain conditions are present. These patterns operate below the level of conscious choice, which is why we can have the best intentions to respond differently, but still find ourselves repeating the same reactions that hurt us when we were children. What made the boy's transformation possible was the development of what Buddhism calls mindfulness, the ability to observe what is arising in consciousness without being completely identified with it. When he saw the injured girl and felt the familiar surge of anger and blame, mindfulness allowed him to recognize, this is my father's pattern arising in me, rather than simply acting from that pattern automatically. This moment of recognition created a space between the triggering event and his response, a space where choice becomes possible. This is perhaps the most important understanding. In all of Buddhist psychology, we are not our patterns. We are the awareness that can observe our patterns. The angry reaction that wanted to blame the injured girl was not the boy's true nature. It was inherited, conditioning arising in the space of his awareness. When he could see it clearly, he could choose not to act from it, and in that choice, the pattern began to lose its power over him. Thich Nhat Hanh's own journey through exile illustrates this same principle on a much larger scale. When he first found himself unable to return to Vietnam, his initial response was shaped by very human patterns of attachment and longing. He had natural desires to be in familiar places, to serve his people directly, and to continue the work he had started in his homeland. The dreams of climbing the green hill to his root temple were expressions of this deep attachment to place and identity. But through his practice of mindfulness, he began to see that his suffering was not actually caused by being separated from Vietnam. It was caused by his attachment to the idea that he needed to be in Vietnam, to be truly at home. This insight did not minimize the real pain of separation, or suggest that missing his homeland was wrong. Rather, it revealed a deeper truth. The peace and belonging he was seeking in external circumstances was actually available in every moment, through the quality of his presence and awareness. The practice of saying, "I have arrived, I am home," was not a mental trick or positive affirmation. It was a recognition of what was already true. His essential nature, his capacity for peace and wisdom and love, was fully present wherever he happened to be. Home was not a place on a map. It was the state of being completely present and awake in the current moment. This realization transformed his exile from a source of ongoing suffering into an opportunity for deeper freedom. This same understanding can transform how we relate to the difficult patterns in our own lives. When anxiety arises, instead of seeing it as an enemy to be defeated or a problem to be solved, we can recognize it as a visitor in the space of our awareness. We can say, "Hello, anxiety. I see you are here. What are you trying to protect?" Often we will discover that underneath the surface, worry is actually love. We are anxious about our children because we care about their well-being. We are worried about our work because we want to contribute something meaningful. We are concerned about our health because we value our life. When we listen to our emotions with this kind of gentle curiosity, they often reveal their deeper wisdom. Anger might be showing us where our boundaries have been crossed. Sadness might be pointing to what we have lost that was precious to us. Fear might be highlighting what we need to protect or prepare for. Instead of being problems to eliminate, our emotions become sources of information and even guidance. This is the practice that transforms not only our inner landscape, but our relationships with others. When someone speaks to us with irritation or criticism, instead of automatically defending ourselves or counterattacking, we can pause and listen for the pain or fear underneath their words. We might hear that their criticism comes from feeling unappreciated, or their anger stems from feeling powerless in some area of their life. This does not mean accepting inappropriate behavior, but it allows us to respond from wisdom rather than simply reacting from our own defensive patterns. The boy at Plum Village discovered that when he could see his father as someone who was also carrying inherited patterns, rather than as an enemy who had hurt him, his whole relationship to their history changed. He began to understand that his father's harsh responses probably came from his father's father, and so on, back through generations of people who never learned a gentler way to handle their own pain and fear. This insight allowed compassion to arise where there had been resentment, and a desire for mutual healing where there had been a wish for revenge or escape. This is what Thich Nhat Hanh means when he talks about healing that extends both into the future and back into the past. When we transform our own patterns through mindful awareness and compassionate understanding, we are not only ensuring that these patterns won't be passed on to the next generation, we are somehow also bringing healing to all the ancestors who carried these same struggles without knowing how to transform them. The practice of deep listening, whether applied to ourselves or others, creates what Buddhism calls merit-positive energy that ripples out far beyond what we can see or measure. Every moment of genuine presence, every choice to respond with understanding rather than reactivity, every instance of seeing clearly through our conditioning, contributes to the healing of the world. This is not mystical thinking. It is recognizing that we are all interconnected and that individual transformation inevitably affects the whole. The seed of Avalokiteshvara, the one who listens to the cries of the world, is already planted in the garden of your consciousness. Every time you choose presence over reactivity, understanding over judgment, compassion over criticism, you are watering this seed and helping it grow. Every time you listen deeply to yourself or another person, you are participating in the healing of the world. Every time you recognize a pattern arising and choose to respond differently, you are breaking chains that may have bound your family line for generations. As we continue this journey together, you will discover how to cultivate this capacity through simple, daily practices that anyone can learn. How the sound of a bell can call you back to your true home. How walking can become a revolutionary act of freedom. And how even ordinary activities, like drinking tea, can become doorways to profound peace. There is a sound that has the power to call you home to yourself, no matter how scattered your thoughts or how heavy your heart. It is not a magical sound or one that requires special equipment or years of training to understand. It is as simple as a bell ringing, yet when approached with the right understanding, it becomes a doorway to the most profound transformation you can imagine. In Buddhist communities around the world, the sound of a bell is not just a signal or a way to mark time. It is considered the voice of the Buddha from within, calling each person back to their true home in the present moment. But this is not about religion or believing in any particular spiritual figure. It is about recognizing that within each of us lives a capacity for awakeness, for peace, for coming fully alive in the here and now. The practice begins with understanding that even something as simple as inviting a bell to sound can become a sacred act when done with complete mindfulness. You do not just pick up an instrument and make noise. That would be like trying to have a meaningful conversation without first taking a moment to center yourself and consider what you want to communicate. Instead, the person who will ring the bell first prepares themselves through a ritual that transforms both the ringer and everyone who will hear the sound. Picture this scene, because it contains wisdom that can change how you approach every transition in your daily life. Before touching the bell master sits quietly and practices mindful breathing. They are not just taking random breaths. They are using their breathing to gather their scattered attention, to calm their nervous system, and to become fully present in their body. This preparation is not optional or ceremonial. It is essential because the quality of attention they bring to ringing the bell will be transmitted to everyone who hears it. As they breathe, they silently recite words that have been used for generations to prepare the heart and mind for this moment of service. Body, speech, and mind in perfect oneness, acknowledging that this is not just a physical action, but an integration of their entire being. I send my heart along with the sound of this bell, recognizing that what they are offering is not just vibration in the air, but their own caring intention for the well-being of others. May the hearers awaken from their forgetfulness and transcend the path of anxiety and sorrow, expressing their deep wish that this simple sound might help others remember their own capacity for peace. When you understand what is happening in this preparation, you realize it is a model for how to approach any action in your life with greater intention and effectiveness. How different would your day be if you took just a moment before important conversations, before meals, before beginning work, to gather your attention and set a positive intention? How much more helpful could you be to others if you approached each interaction not as a task to complete, but as an opportunity to offer your best self? Once the bellmaster is centered and prepared, they do not immediately create the full sound. Instead, they offer what is called a half sound, a gentle warning that alerts everyone in the community that a mindfulness bell is about to ring. This is not just courtesy, though it is deeply considerate. It is recognizing that the effectiveness of mindfulness practice depends on preparation, on creating the right conditions for awareness to flourish. When people hear this preparatory sound, something beautiful happens throughout the community. Conversations naturally come to a gentle close, not abruptly or with irritation, but with the understanding that they are about to receive a gift. People stop what they are doing and turn their attention inward, preparing to receive the full sound. It is like the difference between being suddenly awakened by an alarm clock and having someone gently touch your shoulder and whisper your name. This creates space for one of the most profound practices in all of Buddhist training, the art of stopping. Not stopping as in giving up or becoming passive, but stopping as in coming to rest in the present moment. In our culture, we are constantly in motion mentally, if not physically. Our minds jump from past to future, from problem to problem, from desire to desire, like restless children who can't sit still. But the sound of the mindfulness bell creates an opportunity to interrupt this endless movement and discover what is available when we simply rest in awareness. After allowing time for everyone to prepare, the bellmaster invites the bell to sound fully. And now comes the practice that can transform how you relate to every moment of your life. As the sound fills the space, each person practices breathing mindfully and listening deeply. They are not just hearing the vibrations with their ears, they are receiving the sound with their entire being, using it as an anchor for their wandering attention. The traditional practice involves breathing in while silently saying, "Listen, listen," and breathing out while saying, "This wonderful sound brings me back to my true home." But what is this true home that the bell is calling you back to? It is not a place on a map or a building you can drive to. It is the state of being fully present, fully alive, fully aware of the miracle of this moment. Think about the last time you felt completely at home, not necessarily in a particular location, but in a state of being where you felt safe, peaceful, and exactly where you belonged. Maybe it was holding a sleeping child, or walking in nature, or sharing a quiet moment with someone you love. Maybe it was during an activity that absorbed your complete attention, where you lost track of time and self-consciousness. That sense of belonging, of being fully present and content, that is your true home, and it is available in every moment if you know how to access it. The genius of this practice is that it trains your nervous system to associate certain sounds with coming home to peace. After practicing with mindfulness bells, many people find that they can use any sound, a church bell in the distance, the chiming of a clock, even a phone ringing as a reminder to pause and return to presence. Instead of being constantly pulled away from the moment by external noise, you begin to use sound itself as a pathway back to stillness. There is a particularly beautiful application of this practice that shows how ancient wisdom can transform modern challenges. Instead of rushing to answer the phone on the first ring, you can use the sound as a mindfulness bell. Let it ring while you take 3 conscious breaths, saying to yourself, "Listen, listen. This wonderful sound brings me back to my true home." Then, from this place of centeredness, you walk mindfully to the phone and answer from a state of presence rather than reactivity. This simple shift changes everything about the quality of your phone. Conversations. Instead of being caught off guard or feeling scattered when the phone rings, you become like a bellmaster yourself, prepared, centered, and ready to offer your best attention to whoever is calling. This practice of using sound to return to presence can extend to every part of your life. Whether it is the ringing of an alarm clock, the sound of a doorbell, or even the hum of traffic, these moments of sound can serve as reminders to pause, take a breath, and come home to the present moment. Each sound becomes an invitation to reconnect with the peace that is always available inside you. As you practice this, you may notice that your relationship with time begins to shift. You might stop feeling so rushed or overwhelmed by the demands of your day. Instead of constantly seeking to accomplish more or worrying about what is next, you begin to experience life as a flow of moments that are each worthy of your full attention. The beauty of this practice lies in its simplicity. The bell does not need to be special or ceremonial. It is simply a tool to help you wake up to the present moment. And as you do this, you begin to notice the deep peace that is always available, even in the most ordinary moments of your life. This is what Buddhists mean by the term mindfulness, the practice of being fully aware and awake in every moment, no matter what is happening around you. It is not about trying to change the world or fix things, but about embracing the world as it is, with a heart that is open and a mind that is clear. Through the practice of deep listening, you also begin to heal your relationships with others. Whether it is a family member, a friend, or even a stranger, the act of listening with full attention can transform the way you relate to others. When you listen deeply to someone else, not trying to fix them or judge them, but simply offering them your presence, you create a space where they can be fully seen and heard. This is the practice of Avalokiteshvara, the one who listens to the cries of the world. When you listen with compassion, you become a vessel for healing, not just for others, but for yourself as well. You begin to understand that listening is not a passive act, but a powerful way to connect, to heal, and to offer love. And as you continue this practice, you may find that your own suffering begins to transform. Instead of seeing your emotions as obstacles to be avoided or fought against, you begin to see them as messengers, each one carrying important information about what you need in that moment. Anxiety, for example, may reveal your desire for safety and security. Anger may point to a boundary that has been crossed. Sadness may help you honor what has been lost. By listening deeply to these emotions, you can understand their messages and respond with wisdom, rather than reacting from habit. This is the essence of liberation in Buddhist practice, not the absence of difficulty, but the ability to face difficulty with clarity, presence, and compassion. It is not about escaping from your emotions or your circumstances, but about learning how to be fully present with them so that they no longer have the power to control you. When you cultivate the art of deep listening, you open yourself up to a new way of being in the world. You no longer have to fight against your emotions or struggle with your circumstances. Instead, you learn to flow with them, embracing the present moment with full awareness and an open heart. As you continue to practice, you may find that your relationships improve, your mind becomes clearer, and your life begins to feel more meaningful. You may also notice that you experience less stress and anxiety because you are no longer fighting against the flow of life. Instead, you are simply flowing with it, accepting each moment as it comes, and responding with presence and compassion. And as you begin to experience the peace that comes from deep listening and mindfulness, you may find that your perspective on the world begins to shift. Instead of seeing the world as a place full of problems to be solved, you begin to see it as a place full of opportunities for growth, connection, and healing. You begin to realize that the key to living a peaceful and fulfilling life is not in changing the world around you, but in changing your relationship to it. When you learn to listen deeply, to be fully present, and to respond with compassion, you become a force for positive change in the world. So as you continue your journey, remember this: the practice of deep listening is not about achieving a goal or reaching a destination. It is about learning to be fully present with each moment, with each breath, with each sound. It is about opening yourself up to the miracle of the present moment and allowing that miracle to transform you from the inside out. As you practice deep listening, you will begin to experience the peace that comes from simply being, from simply listening, from simply being present in the here and now. And in that peace, you will find the freedom that has always been within you, waiting to be discovered. The person on the other end of the conversation might sense something different, though they may not fully grasp why it feels distinct. Before making a call, just as a bellmaster prepares to ring a bell, you can take a moment to center yourself. Breathe mindfully and reflect on what you want to communicate. You could silently repeat phrases similar to those used by the bellmaster. Words have the power to travel vast distances. May my words foster understanding and compassion. May everything I express bloom like flowers and spread more love across the world. This is not about perfection or avoiding challenging conversations. It is about approaching communication with awareness, not on autopilot, with the aim to help, not merely to discharge personal emotions or fulfill individual needs. When both individuals in a conversation engage with this mindful presence, something profound occurs. They are able to truly hear one another. Not just the words, but the humanity beneath them. This practice goes beyond formal meditation sessions or phone calls and extends to every transition in your day. In some communities, bells ring every 15 minutes to remind people to pause, regardless of what they are doing, whether it is cooking, working, studying, or walking, and take 3 mindful breaths. It is like having a compassionate reminder in the form of a gentle friend, nudging you to return to yourself multiple times throughout the day. You can create a similar structure in your life using something as simple as a soft chime on your phone. When the chime rings, pause and ask yourself, where is my attention right now? Often, you will realize your mind is elsewhere, replaying yesterday's conversation, fretting about tomorrow, or lost in planning and fantasy. The bell offers you the chance to gently guide your awareness back to the present moment. Returning to the present is not just an enriching practice. It is the key to experiencing what a wise teacher once called the most wonderful moment of your life. Many people, when asked if they have experienced the most wonderful moment of their life, will say that they are still waiting for it. They might think it will come when they meet the right person, achieve a certain goal, retire, or when their problems are finally solved. But this mindset ensures that the wonderful moment will never come, because there will always be another goal, another problem, another reason to postpone happiness. The Buddhist view challenges this assumption with a radical idea. The present moment can become the most wonderful moment of your life, not by changing your surroundings, but by fully embracing what is already here. When you are completely present, you can appreciate the miracle of life, being able to see, hear, and feel, your heart beating, your lungs breathing without effort. This does not mean denying difficult experiences or forcing yourself to feel grateful amidst pain. It means recognizing that, even in challenging times, there are moments of wonder if you are present enough to notice. The warmth of sunlight through a window, the kindness in a stranger's eyes, the simple fact that your body is tirelessly keeping you alive. These small miracles occur constantly, but we often miss them when our minds are elsewhere. Practicing presence through the sound of a bell trains us to notice them. Each time you pause and breathe mindfully, you are strengthening your capacity to be fully here, fully alive, fully ready to receive the gifts each moment offers. It is like developing a muscle that most do not even realize they have, the muscle of presence. But perhaps the most revolutionary aspect of this practice is how it redefines the concept of home. In a fast-moving, globalized world, many people feel disconnected, never truly at home, constantly moving between places, never fully settling. Others feel disconnected even in familiar surroundings due to family dysfunction, economic instability, or simply a sense that they do not fit in. The teaching of the mindfulness bell presents a different idea of home, one that cannot be taken away by external circumstances. Your true home is not a place, it is a state of being. The ability to be present, aware, and at peace with whatever arises in your experience. This home exists within you wherever you are, regardless of your surroundings. Whether in a palace or a prison, surrounded by loved ones or isolated, this home is always available. This truth was confirmed by a master who spent 38 years away from his homeland. In the early years of his forced exile, he dreamed again and again of returning to the familiar hills and temples of his youth. Each time, he would wake up disoriented, recalling the painful reality that he could not return. The agony of displacement was profound, but through the practice of mindful breathing and being present in the moment, something shifted. He realized that his suffering was not due to being far from a particular place, but because he clung to the belief that he needed to be elsewhere to feel at home. When he could sincerely say, "I have arrived, I am home," the dreams stopped. He found a home that could not be taken away by governments, circumstances, or time. You can apply this same realization in everyday moments. When you are stuck in traffic, instead of feeling frustrated about the delay, breathe mindfully and say, "I have arrived, I am home." When waiting in line at the store, instead of feeling impatient, use the time to reconnect with your body and breath. When you are lying awake in bed, unable to sleep, do not struggle against insomnia. Rest in awareness itself. The bell's sound teaches that every moment is an arrival. Every breath is a homecoming. You do not have to wait for better circumstances or different emotions to be fully here. You can arrive completely in this moment with whatever it contains and realize that this arrival is the peace you have been seeking. There are many variations of this practice that can deepen your experience. Some people focus on different words with each breath. Breathing in, I feel calm and relaxed. Breathing out, I smile. Others prefer, breathing in, I establish myself in the present moment. Breathing out, I know this is a wonderful moment. The specific words matter less than the intention behind them. Committing to using your breath as a way to return to presence and peace. What is remarkable is how this simple practice can change how you relate to sound. Instead of seeing noise as an interruption or distraction, you begin to hear it as an invitation. An invitation to pause, to breathe, to reconnect with your true self beneath the thoughts and worries. Church bells become calls to mindfulness. The ticking of a clock reminds you to come home. Even construction noise or traffic sounds can become moments to practice patience and presence. This is what some call informal meditation, bringing the awareness developed in seated practice into every aspect of your life. The sound of running water while washing dishes becomes a mindfulness bell. The whistle of the kettle calls you back to presence. Your footsteps on the pavement become a rhythm for returning to your body. As you develop this practice, you may notice that you need fewer external reminders. The ability to pause and return to presence naturally arises throughout your day. You might find yourself taking conscious breaths at red lights without any reminder. You will notice that you are more present during conversations, more aware of your surroundings, and more able to appreciate the small beauties you once rushed past. This is the blossoming of what Buddhist teachers call continuous mindfulness, a state where awareness becomes so natural, you no longer need to work at maintaining it. You simply are, like a tree, a mountain, or the sky. This does not mean you become passive or lose your ability to think or plan. It means that everything you do comes from a place of rootedness in the present moment, making all actions more effective and less stressful. The bell practice is preparation for this natural state of wakefulness. Each time you pause and listen deeply, you water the seeds of presence within your consciousness. Each time you interrupt mental busyness and return to your breath, you strengthen your ability to experience peace that does not depend on external conditions. As we continue on this journey together, we will explore how this foundation of presence helps transform difficult emotions and break free from long-standing patterns. But for now, rest in the realization that your true home is always available, as close as your next breath, as near as the next sound you hear. There is a profound truth that many spend their entire lives searching for, but it is hidden in plain sight. We believe peace, belonging, and contentment exist in external circumstances, in the perfect relationship, ideal living situation, or ideal career. But what if everything we have been taught about finding home is wrong? What if seeking happiness in external conditions is what keeps us feeling lost and restless? This understanding emerged from a story of exile and discovery in modern spiritual history. A young teacher, deeply committed to serving his people, found himself exiled from his homeland, and what was supposed to be a short trip became an exile that lasted nearly 4 decades. But through this profound loss, he discovered something so valuable it transformed not only his own life, but millions of others. In 1966, during a brutal conflict, this teacher was invited by Cornell University to give a series of lectures. His homeland was torn apart by war, and his people were forced to fight each other, driven by foreign weapons and ideologies. In the midst of this, he and his community started a movement for peace, simply saying, "Do not shoot your brother." They were the voice of the ordinary people who did not want war. But their call for peace was ignored by both sides. And sometimes, the only way to get the world's attention was through extreme acts of sacrifice. Monks and nuns burned themselves alive, not out of despair, but as acts of love, hoping to awaken the world to the violence. When the invitation to speak at Cornell came, the teacher planned to stay in the U.S. for only 3 months. He would give his lectures, tour the country to share the truth about the war in his homeland, and then return to continue his work with the school and university he had founded. His friends, colleagues, and students were back home, depending on him. He had no intention of staying away for long. But what was meant to be a short visit turned into 3 years, then 10, then 20, and finally 38 years of exile. The government revoked his citizenship, declaring that his message of peace was harmful to the war effort. He was told that if he returned, he would face imprisonment or worse. The man who only wanted to help his people find peace now found himself cut off from everything he had ever known. In those early years of exile, despite his deep understanding of spiritual principles, he learned that intellectual knowledge could not protect him from the profound disorientation of being away from home. He traveled from city to city giving lectures, staying only a night or two in each place, always moving, always in unfamiliar surroundings. Each night, he would wake up in a strange bed, disoriented, and have to breathe deeply to piece together where he was, what city, what country, what continent. The constant traveling, the unfamiliarity of his environment, was exhausting and unsettling. But the hardest part was not just the physical discomfort. It was the recurring dream that came to him over and over again. In the dream, he would return to the hill in his homeland where his family's temple stood. He would see the familiar green hill rising in front of him, the beautiful trees he had loved as a child. With joy and anticipation in his heart, he would begin to climb the hill, knowing that he would soon return to the place that felt like home. But halfway up the hill, he would wake up, and the crushing realization would hit him. He was still in exile, still far from everything that had once been his home. The dream repeated relentlessly, each time offering hope only to shatter it with the harsh reality of his situation. For someone who taught others about finding peace, this persistent pain of homesickness was both humbling and profoundly challenging. Despite his personal struggles, he was tirelessly active, seeking to serve others. He befriended Catholic priests, Protestant ministers, professors, and activists. He played with children from different countries, German, French, African, and British, learning to find joy in cross-cultural connections. Yet despite all of this, the sense of displacement never truly left him. The trees in his new surroundings were so different from those he had known. The fruits, the flowers, the seasons, everything felt foreign. Nothing nourished his soul in the way his homeland had. The people, though kind and welcoming, spoke different languages and came from different cultural backgrounds. While he could see the beauty and goodness in his new environment, nothing felt truly familiar or deeply comforting. But gradually, through his practice of mindfulness and present moment awareness, a shift began to occur. He started to question the very foundation of his suffering. Was his pain truly caused by being far from a particular place? Or was it his attachment to the idea that he needed to be there to feel at home? This was not just an intellectual exercise. It was a matter of survival, finding a way to live with joy and purpose, even in seemingly impossible circumstances. Through patient practice of mindful breathing and returning his attention to the present moment, he began to recognize something profound. His true home had never been a place on a map. It was not the building where he was born, the temple where he was trained, or even the land he loved. His true home was the state of being fully present, fully aware, and fully alive, no matter where he found himself. This realization did not come in a flash of dramatic enlightenment. It arose slowly through the simple practice of saying to himself, "I have arrived. I am home." At first, those words felt hollow. How could he be home when he was so far from where he wanted to be? How could he have arrived when everything around him was unfamiliar? But as he continued to practice, breathing in with, "I have arrived," and breathing out with, "I am home," something began to shift in his understanding. He realized that arrival is not about reaching a destination. It is about becoming fully present wherever you are. Home is not a place you travel to. It is a quality of awareness you can cultivate in any circumstance. The peace he had been searching for in external conditions was always available in every moment, through the simple act of paying attention to what was happening right now. When this understanding became not just a theory but a lived reality, something extraordinary occurred. The dreams of returning to the green hill ceased. The sense of victimhood, of being trapped by circumstances, transformed into a recognition of his fundamental freedom. He could still love his homeland, still feel sadness about the separation, but now there was peace in his heart. The sense of rootedness, of being at home, no longer depended on external factors. It was not tied to a location or a specific group of people. It was always available within him. Every breath, every moment of presence was an arrival. This realization began to shape everything in his life. The sense of freedom that came with being at home, wherever he was, became a foundation for everything he did. He did not need to wait for circumstances to change, for his homeland to reopen, or for the pain of separation to end. He could, in any given moment, choose to arrive, to be fully present, to breathe deeply, and to find peace in the here and now. He began to live with a new understanding of what it meant to be home. Every step he took, every breath he drew, was an act of arriving. Whether he was walking through a foreign city, sitting in a small cafe, or giving a lecture, he knew that he had the ability to be fully grounded in the present moment, to be aware of the miracle of being alive. Through his practice, he also began to notice how much peace and contentment could be found in the simplest things. The sound of a bird singing, the feel of the sun on his skin, the laughter of a child. These became moments of profound significance. He realized that these small miracles were all around him, waiting to be noticed. The peace he sought had never been something he could chase externally. It had always been inside him, waiting for him to stop searching for it outside and simply turn his attention inward. The moment he could truly be present, he realized, was the moment he was home. This understanding of home also became a teaching for others. As he shared his wisdom, he spoke of how the external world is often chaotic and unpredictable. But true peace comes from the ability to remain grounded in the present moment, regardless of what is happening around us. By practicing mindful awareness, we can all find this inner sanctuary. One of the most profound lessons he shared was the importance of letting go of the need for external validation or approval. Home was not a place where others could give him peace. It was a place within him, a state of being. He encouraged his students to embrace the present moment, to recognize that no matter where they were, whether in a bustling city, a quiet village, or even a place of great hardship, they had the power to return to this home. The teacher's journey of exile had revealed something deeply important. True peace, true contentment, true home were all accessible in any circumstance, but it required the practice of mindfulness and presence. By being fully aware of each moment, we could transform any experience into a sanctuary. And so, the teacher's work and message reached far beyond his homeland, touching people in all corners of the world. He taught that every single breath we take, every moment we live, offers an opportunity to arrive, to return home, to be present and fully alive. In this way, we can all live in peace, regardless of where we are or what we face. Eventually, his exile became a blessing in disguise, for it was during these years that he truly discovered the nature of home, peace, and freedom. He learned that no matter how far from home we may feel, we always carry within us the ability to return. No matter what external circumstances we face, we can always come home to ourselves. At that moment, the deep emotions that once shaped his experiences no longer had control over him. They no longer kept him from finding joy or meaning in his life. He discovered that his true home had never been confined to any one place or time. It was not Vietnam, even though his love for it was profound. It was not France, where he had once found refuge, nor America, where he had shared his wisdom, or any other nation where his work took him. His real home lay in the presence and awareness that he could tap into anywhere, no matter where he was. This home could not be taken by governments, destroyed by wars, or lost through any external forces. This shift in perception did not cause him to retreat or resign himself to injustice. On the contrary, it empowered him to be more effective in his pursuit of peace, for he was no longer coming from a place of desperation or victimhood. He saw that even those who had exiled him were not his enemies. Instead, they were simply people caught in their own fear and conditioning. Their fear was rooted in the idea that his message of unity and brotherhood could threaten their power. But he realized that they, too, were victims of the same forces of division and hatred that had torn his homeland apart. From this place of inner freedom, he was able to offer true compassion, even to those who had inflicted pain upon him. He saw no enemies, understanding that every person, including those who opposed him, was grappling with the same basic human struggles, longing for security, fearing loss, and yearning for love and understanding. This practice was no longer only about finding personal peace. It became about helping others to break free from the illusion that happiness lies in external circumstances. This insight holds deep implications for how we handle our own struggles with belonging and satisfaction. How many of us go through life feeling that we are in the wrong place, surrounded by the wrong people, or stuck in the wrong circumstances? How much energy do we waste believing that happiness will only come when we reach the perfect location, achieve the right relationship, or amass enough wealth and security? The concept of a true home offers a radically different approach. Rather than constantly seeking better external conditions, we can learn to be fully present in whatever circumstances we find ourselves in. This does not mean passively accepting harmful situations that we have the power to change, but rather cultivating the inner stability and clarity that allows us to meet life's challenges with wisdom, rather than from a place of need or fear. This understanding can be practiced right now, wherever you are. Take a moment to breathe deeply and silently affirm to yourself, "I have arrived." You do not need to be anywhere else to be fully present. Then breathe out and say, "I am home." Recognize that peace and awareness are already within you, and you do not need different circumstances to access them. This practice is particularly powerful in moments when you feel displaced or dissatisfied. If you are stuck in traffic, breathe mindfully and remind yourself that you have arrived in this moment of waiting. If you are standing in a long line, come back to your body and your breath, rather than rushing mentally toward what is next. When you lie awake at night, consumed by worries about the future, you can find refuge in the present moment, rather than being overwhelmed by imaginary scenarios. The practice deepens as you begin to realize how fully being present in the moment can heal both the past and the future. When you arrive fully in the here and now, you are not abandoning your history or giving up on your aspirations. You are engaging with the only place where true healing and transformation can take place. The past lives on only in your memories, and your relationship with those memories can be transformed through present moment awareness. The future is merely an idea in your mind, and the nature of that future is shaped by the choices you make today. This wisdom, forged through decades of exile, was not only a survival tool, it became a teaching that touched millions of lives. People from all over the world began to realize that they, too, could find their true home, regardless of the external circumstances in which they found themselves. Whether they were refugees fleeing war, immigrants adapting to new countries, or individuals who felt disconnected from their surroundings, they all learned that arrival and belonging were available through the practice of being present. The most profound aspect of this teaching is how it transforms not just your relationship with place, but with time itself. Many of us carry the persistent belief that the good life is always in the future, when we graduate, get married, retire, or when our problems are solved. Or we live in nostalgia, believing that the happiest moments of our lives are behind us, in a time when things seemed easier or more promising. This constant mental time travel keeps us from fully inhabiting the present moment. But when you learn to say, I have arrived, I am home, with genuine understanding, you are acknowledging that your life is unfolding right here, right now. Not in some idealized future when everything is perfect. Not in some distant past when everything seemed better, but in this present moment, with all its imperfections and infinite possibilities. This does not mean giving up on positive change or pretending that all circumstances are perfect. It means recognizing that your capacity for peace, joy, and love does not depend on perfect external conditions. The teacher who discovered this truth during his long exile often said that if he were to return to his homeland, he would be overjoyed. He would love to offer teachings to the monks, nuns, and lay people there, to share with artists, writers, and youth how to create a more peaceful society. But if returning was not possible, he did not need to suffer. He could connect with people from other countries, China, Korea, Japan, Spain, England, Canada, and share the same wisdom that transcended political and cultural boundaries. This perspective offers freedom to anyone who feels trapped by circumstances that seem to block their happiness. Whether you live far from loved ones, work in a job that does not fulfill you, or face health challenges, your well-being does not need to depend on external achievements. You can find real contentment and purpose no matter where life places you. Practicing presence also teaches you something beautiful about the nature of time. When you are fully present, you realize that this moment contains everything you need. Not everything you want, but everything you need to take the next step, to respond with wisdom, and to experience peace and gratitude. This is why the phrase, I have arrived, I am home, became the essence of decades of spiritual practice and teaching. It is not about denying difficulties or avoiding uncomfortable truths. Rather, it is the recognition that your true nature, your capacity for awareness, love, wisdom, and peace is already present, available right now. This true nature is not something external you need to acquire, but something that is already at the core of your being. It cannot be damaged by circumstances or lost through failure. As you begin practicing this understanding, you may notice how your relationship to travel and movement begins to shift. Instead of constantly seeking to escape your present situation, you learn to bring presence and appreciation to wherever you are. When you travel, it is not out of a desire to run away from yourself, but because you are curious to experience your true home in different settings. Your external journey then becomes a reflection of an inner journey toward greater awareness and freedom. You may also notice that your relationships with others deepen. When you are no longer seeking fulfillment through external circumstances, you can be more genuinely present with others. You listen more attentively because you are not mentally elsewhere, planning your escape or waiting for something better to come. You love more freely, as your happiness no longer depends on others behaving in a particular way. This quality of presence is one of the greatest gifts you can offer to anyone, and it naturally arises from the practice of coming home to yourself. True home within is not a destination that you reach after years of practice. It is your natural state, one that becomes accessible the moment you stop seeking fulfillment in external things. Every breath becomes an opportunity to arrive. Every moment offers a chance to come home. The peace you have been seeking has always been waiting patiently for you to realize that it has never been anywhere except right here, in the simple miracle of your own aware presence. As we continue exploring these teachings, you will discover how this foundation of inner homecoming becomes the basis for transforming even the most difficult relationships and healing wounds that seemed permanent. But for now, Rest in the understanding that wherever you are, whatever you are experiencing, you are already home. Sometimes, the most courageous acts are not those performed on battlefields with weapons, but in quiet moments when someone chooses love over hatred, understanding over revenge, and compassion over the burning desire for justice. The stories you are about to hear are from one of the most brutal conflicts of the 20th century. They reveal how ordinary people can become extraordinary warriors. Not warriors who destroy, but warriors who heal, who build bridges where others see only division. These stories are not about military strategy or political maneuvering. They are about what happens when the human heart refuses to be hardened by even the most extreme suffering. They reveal that your greatest enemy may, in fact, be the person most in need of your compassion, and that the path to peace sometimes requires sacrifices that the world may struggle to understand. In the 1960s, a beautiful country in Southeast Asia was torn apart by forces its people had not chosen. Foreign powers had drawn lines on maps, imported weapons, and introduced competing ideologies that turned neighbors into enemies. Brothers were forced to kill brothers, using guns and bombs sent from distant lands, fighting for causes imposed upon them by people who would never face the consequences of the violence. The communist and anti-communist forces, both armed with weapons from foreign countries, waged war against each other, urged on by superpowers who saw this ancient land as little more than a pawn in their global game. The tragedy was not just the physical destruction. The villages burned, the families separated, the ancient temples destroyed, but also the spiritual devastation. The conflict forced people to abandon their deepest values of compassion and harmony, replacing them with hatred and suspicion. Amid this madness, a group of monks, nuns, and laypeople started a movement with a message so simple that even children could understand it, yet so radical that it threatened everyone in power. They called it, "Do not shoot your brother." This was not a political slogan, nor was it a call to support one side over the other. It was a fundamental reminder that the person wearing the enemy's uniform was someone's son, someone's father, someone who had been born with the same capacity for love and suffering as you. They were the voice of ordinary people who could see through the artificial divisions imposed upon them, rice farmers who had no interest in communist or capitalist ideologies, but only wanted to tend their fields in peace, mothers who did not care about political strategies, but simply wanted their children to grow up without fear, elderly people who remembered a time when neighbors helped each other, regardless of political beliefs, students who dreamed of building a more beautiful society, rather than destroying the one they had inherited. But this voice of sanity was dangerous to those who needed the war to continue, military contractors who profited from the endless demand for weapons, and politicians who built their careers on anti-communist rhetoric. Foreign powers used the conflict to further their own strategic interests. The peace activists were silenced by both sides, treated as traitors by those who claimed to be fighting for their freedom. Their books were banned, their articles censored, their calls for reconciliation were seen as threats to the war effort. They discovered that in a world gone mad with violence, the most dangerous thing you can be is someone who refuses to choose between artificial sides, someone who insists on seeing the humanity in all people, even those designated as enemies. The leader of this peace movement was a young monk who had founded a university and a school for social service. He had trained in traditional Buddhism, but believed that ancient wisdom needed to be applied to contemporary problems. He called this approach engaged Buddhism. This was a spirituality that did not retreat from the world's suffering, but engaged with it directly, offering compassionate responses to war, injustice, poverty, and oppression. When traditional methods of communication failed, when their voices were drowned out by the propaganda machines of both sides, some of these peaceful warriors made a choice that shook the world. They decided that if their voices could not be heard through words, they would speak through the ultimate sacrifice. This was not a decision made in anger or despair, but through deep meditation and careful preparation. They understood that their deaths would carry a message that no amount of censorship could silence. On a June morning in 1963, an elderly monk named Thich Quang Duc, who had been a close friend and mentor to the peace movement's leader, sat quietly in a busy intersection in the capital city. He had spent the previous days in intensive meditation, preparing his mind and heart for what he was about to do. He had said goodbye to his fellow monks, given final instructions about his funeral, and written letters to be read after his death, as fellow monks chanted prayers around him. Creating a circle of spiritual protection, he poured gasoline over his robes and struck a match. The image of this monk burning himself alive appeared on the front page of newspapers around the world the next day. The young leader saw it on the front page of the New York Times while he was visiting America. The grief was overwhelming, not just personal grief for the loss of a beloved friend, but grief for a world that had become so deaf to the cries of suffering that only the most extreme sacrifice could get its attention. But what most people did not understand was that this was not an act of despair or suicide in any conventional sense. It was an act of pure love, a desperate attempt to wake the world up to the suffering of his people. The monk had meditated deeply on his intention, ensuring that his heart was free from hatred or desire for revenge. He died not with curses on his lips, but with prayers for peace and forgiveness. His sacrifice was of the same nature as that of great spiritual teachers throughout history, who gave their lives not to destroy their enemies, but to save them from their own hatred and blindness. This understanding of self-sacrifice as an act of love rather than violence was central to the peace movement's philosophy. They saw a fundamental difference between killing others to advance your cause and sacrificing yourself to communicate a message of compassion. One adds more violence and hatred to the world, while the other offers the possibility of transformation through love. They understood that the monk's death was like Christ's crucifixion, an act of suffering to awaken others to the possibility of love. A young woman named Nhat Mai, who had been one of the first 6 members of a newly formed spiritual community called the Order of Interbeing, witnessed the impact of this sacrifice and felt called to follow the same path. She was a brilliant student, a gifted writer, and a devoted practitioner who had dedicated her life to serving others. She had watched the war escalate month by month, had seen the peace movement systematically silenced, and had come to believe that only the most extreme act of love could pierce through the world's indifference to her people's suffering. She was particularly close to Sister Chan Kong, who would later become one of the most important teachers in the global mindfulness movement. The 2 young women had worked together on projects to help war orphans and refugees, spending long hours discussing how to apply Buddhist principles to the practical work of relieving suffering. Nhat Mai's decision to sacrifice her life was not made in isolation, but through deep dialogue with her spiritual community about how to respond to evil with good. On a quiet morning before dawn, she made her way to Tuni Temple, one of the most ancient and sacred sites in the capital. She had chosen this location carefully, knowing that the symbolism would be important. The temple represented the spiritual heritage that was being destroyed by the war, the wisdom traditions that both sides claimed to be defending while actually betraying. Nhat Mai knew that her act would not only be seen as an act of love, but also as a profound message for peace, a message that transcended political boundaries and ideologies. She wanted to make sure that the world could not ignore the suffering of her people anymore. As she approached the temple, she knew that her sacrifice would inspire others to reconsider their hatred and violence. Her death, like that of Viet Quang Duc, became a turning point in the movement. It sparked widespread international attention, causing many to reconsider the path of violence and war that had dominated the lives of so many. Though both were taken from this world, their legacy lived on. They inspired countless others to seek peace through love, compassion, and self-sacrifice. These teachings spread across borders and cultures. They challenged us to see that the most radical change comes not from political maneuvers or the quest for power, but from within the heart, a heart that chooses peace, even in the face of unimaginable suffering. Through their extraordinary sacrifices, these monks and activists demonstrated the power of love and compassion to heal the deepest wounds. Their message is timeless. We can always choose to come home, no matter where we are. We can choose to embody love, understanding, and peace in every situation, just as they did in their final acts. In a world filled with division and hatred, the teachings of peace, presence, and homecoming remain as powerful as ever. The practice of arriving in the present moment, of seeing the humanity in others, and of living with compassion continues to resonate as a path toward a more peaceful world. She placed a statue of the Virgin Mary alongside a statue of Guan Yin, the Buddhist figure of compassion, symbolizing her belief that all authentic spiritual traditions point toward the same truth, visible, of universal love. She had spent weeks writing letters that she left behind as her final testament. One was addressed to the president of North Vietnam, another to the president of South Vietnam. Others were written to world leaders, religious figures, and ordinary citizens. Each letter called for the same thing: an end to the killing, a commitment to dialogue and reconciliation, a recognition that the people of this beautiful country deserve to live in peace. Her final letter was to her teacher, who was traveling abroad, trying to build international support for peace. Then, like her spiritual elder before her, she poured gasoline over her robes and lit the flame that would carry her message to the world. She died as she had lived, with a heart full of compassion, calling for understanding rather than revenge, love rather than hatred. Her sacrifice represented the voice of an entire generation of young people who saw their futures being destroyed by conflicts they had never chosen. Her teacher, who had been in New York working with peace activists and religious leaders, learned of her sacrifice while reading the morning newspaper. The grief was devastating. This brilliant young woman, who had shown such promise for bringing healing to the world, who had been like a sister to his closest disciple, was gone. But even in her final letter to him, she had tried to comfort her teacher, writing, "Tai, do not worry. Peace will come. Do not suffer too much." Do not worry. Even as she prepared to die, she was thinking of others, trying to ease their pain. These acts of self-sacrifice created a moral crisis for the world. How do you respond to people who die not to kill their enemies, but to save them? How do you ignore a message delivered at such an ultimate cost? The international media struggled to categorize these deaths, calling them suicide when they were actually the opposite acts of extreme love for life itself. The teacher understood that the world needed to hear not just about the sacrifices being made, but about the philosophy behind them. He began writing and speaking about the understanding that violence only creates more violence, that hatred only breeds more hatred, that the cycle of suffering can only be broken through acts of radical love. This message needed to reach beyond the borders of his own country, to touch people everywhere who were struggling with the question of how to respond to injustice without perpetuating it. This understanding led to one of the most significant encounters in the modern peace movement, exactly 1 year before meeting him in person. The teacher had written a detailed letter to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., explaining why monks and nuns were burning themselves alive. It was not suicide in the conventional sense, he explained, but an act of love designed to communicate what could not be communicated any other way. The letter described how these sacrifices were made without anger or hatred, with the same spirit that motivated Jesus Christ's death on the cross, a willingness to suffer in order to wake others up, to love. The letter was carefully crafted, written by someone who understood that Dr. King would face criticism for opposing the war. It explained the connections between the struggle for civil rights in America and the struggle for peace in Southeast Asia. Both movements were fighting against the same fundamental problem, the human tendency to solve conflicts through violence and oppression, rather than understanding and justice. Both were challenging systems that treated some human beings as less worthy of dignity and respect than others. On June 1, 1966, exactly 1 year after sending that letter, the two men met in Chicago. The encounter took place at a time when Dr. King was facing intense pressure from both the government and some of his own supporters not to speak out against the war. Many civil rights leaders believed that opposing the war would alienate President Johnson and jeopardize progress on domestic issues. But King had been deeply moved by the letter and wanted to understand more about this monk's perspective on nonviolence. They talked for hours about the connections between racism and militarism, about the spiritual roots of social justice work, about the challenges of maintaining hope in the face of overwhelming violence. They discovered that they shared not just political views, but a deep spiritual understanding that lasting change could only come through transformation of consciousness, not through defeating enemies. They recognized that they were fighting different manifestations of the same fundamental problem, the illusion that some human beings are expendable. After their private conversation, they met with the press together, and that very day, Dr. King publicly came out against the war. It was a moment when two great movements for human dignity joined forces. When the struggle for peace abroad and the fight for civil rights at home became one unified effort. The teacher later said that from that day forward, their work was inseparable. You cannot fight against racism while supporting war, because both arise from the same root of seeing others as enemies, rather than brothers and sisters. 2 years later, they met again at a conference in Geneva organized by the World Council of Churches. The gathering brought together religious leaders, peace activists, and social justice advocates from around the world. Among the participants was Linus Pauling, the Nobel Prize-winning scientist, who had become a prominent voice for nuclear disarmament. The teacher was staying on the 4th floor of the hotel while Dr. King was on the 11th floor. Despite his incredibly busy schedule and the constant demands on his time, Dr. King personally invited his friend up for breakfast. When the teacher arrived late because he had been delayed by reporters wanting interviews, he found that Dr. King had kept the breakfast warm for him. This simple act of kindness spoke volumes about the character of this great leader. In the midst of his world-changing work, he still had time for personal gestures that honored friendship and showed care for individual people. It was the kind of attention to small acts of love that both men understood was essential to any movement for justice. During that breakfast, the teacher told Dr. King something that would prove to be prophetic and deeply meaningful. "Martin," he said, "you know something? In my country they call you a bodhisattva." A bodhisattva, he explained, is an enlightened being who has achieved liberation from suffering, but chooses to remain in the world to help others find their way to freedom and understanding. It is someone who could escape from the difficulties of life, but stays to serve those who are still struggling. The title was particularly meaningful because it recognized Drive King not just as a political leader or social activist, but as a spiritual teacher whose work was transforming consciousness. It acknowledged that his commitment to nonviolence came not from political strategy, but from deep spiritual understanding. The teacher was grateful he had the chance to share this insight, because just a few months later, Dr. King was assassinated in Memphis. The world lost not just a civil rights leader, but a bodhisattva, someone whose presence had made liberation more possible for everyone. These connections with the American civil rights movement were part of a larger effort to build an international community of people committed to nonviolent social change. But the teacher and his colleagues faced enormous obstacles in their work. Obstacles that revealed the extent to which governments feared their message of peace and reconciliation. They had established an office in Paris to represent the voices of ordinary people who had no political power, whose perspectives were never heard in the international media. The office was located in a poor quarter of the city, number 11 of a street mainly inhabited by people of Arab origin, symbolizing their solidarity with all marginalized communities. Every time the teacher applied for a visa to travel to America or England to share these perspectives, his application was automatically denied. The process became so predictable that he knew before applying that he would be rejected. A reporter from the Baltimore Sun eventually told him that there was an official dispatch from the capital city asking the governments of the United States, France, England, and Japan not to honor his passport because he had been saying things that were not helpful to the war efforts against communism. The irony was devastating. A monk whose only crime was calling for peace was treated as a security threat by the very governments that claimed to be fighting for freedom and democracy. His message of reconciliation and brotherhood was seen as more dangerous than the actual weapons that were destroying his homeland. The peace activists were monitored, their communications intercepted, their movements restricted, while arms dealers and war profiteers operated freely. The only way he could get permission to travel was through the intervention of powerful politicians who would write personal letters of invitation. The senators like George McGovern and Robert Kennedy would have to write saying, "Dear friend, I need to learn more about the situation in your country. Please come and inform me about what is really happening. If you have difficulties with your visa, please call me at this number." Only with such letters from high-ranking officials could he obtain the documents necessary to share his message of peace with American audiences. Even with these high-level interventions, travel remained dangerous and humiliating. On one particularly memorable occasion, flying from Tokyo to Paris via Seattle and New York, he was detained at the Seattle airport without explanation. Immigration officials took his passport and locked him in a room where he could not contact anyone or communicate with the outside world. The walls were covered with wanted posters featuring the faces of criminals and terrorists, as if he were a dangerous fugitive, rather than a monk whose only weapon was compassion. He spent hours in that room surrounded by images of violence and criminality, meditating on the fear and confusion that could make officials treat a peace advocate as a threat to national security. He was held there until just before his connecting flight was due to leave, then released without explanation or apology. The message was clear. He was being watched, his movements monitored, his influence contained. Speaking for peace was dangerous work in a world committed to war. These experiences of being treated as a threat to national security for advocating peace taught him something profound about the nature of fear and enemies. He began to see that the people who were oppressing him and silencing his message were not evil monsters, but human beings caught in their own fear and confusion. They were afraid that his message of reconciliation and brotherhood might threaten their power, their sense of security, their entire worldview. They were victims of the same forces of hatred and division that were tearing his homeland apart. This understanding led to one of the most radical insights in all of spiritual teaching. The recognition that our enemies are not our enemies, but people who need our help. The officials who had exiled him, who had banned his books, who had tried to silence his voice, they were not people to be hated or defeated, but people to be healed. They were suffering from the same spiritual disease that makes war seem necessary, the inability to see other human beings as worthy of love and respect. They were prisoners of their own fear. And like all prisoners, they deserved compassion rather than condemnation. This perspective did not make him passive or resigned to injustice. If anything, it made him more effective in his work for peace, because he was no longer motivated by anger or the desire for revenge. He could respond to oppression with clarity and wisdom rather than reactive emotion. He understood that lasting change could only come through transformation of consciousness, not through defeating enemies or winning political battles. He often reflected on how difficult it had been for peace activists to voice their concerns during the war. Most of the people in his country did not want the war, but they had no access to mass media. No way to make their voices heard above the propaganda of both sides. The peace movement represented the silent majority, but they were the least powerful voices in the conversation about their own country's future. Military leaders, politicians, and foreign advisors dominated the narrative, while ordinary people who bore the cost of the violence had no platform to speak. The teacher's poetry from this period, which he preferred to call peace poetry rather than anti-war poetry, was condemned by the North and confiscated by the South. Both sides saw his message of reconciliation as a threat to their cause. He was calling people to remember their common humanity at a time when political forces needed them to see each other as enemies. His crime was refusing to choose between the artificial divisions that had been imposed upon his people. He insisted on seeing Vietnamese people as one family, regardless of which political system they lived under. This experience of being caught in the middle, rejected by both sides of a conflict, taught him something that became central to all his teaching. He learned that the path of peace often means accepting misunderstanding and rejection from people who think you should choose their side. It means being willing to be seen as naive or idealistic by those who have given up on the possibility of solving problems without violence. It means standing for principles that transcend the immediate political pressures of any particular moment. It means having the courage to be criticized by everyone while serving the truth that lives beyond all partial perspectives. But perhaps most importantly, it means developing the inner strength to continue loving, even when that love is not returned, not understood, not appreciated. The teacher discovered that this kind of unconditional love is not weakness. It is the strongest force in the universe. It is what allows people to keep working for justice and peace, even when their efforts seem to have no immediate effect. It is what prevents activists from becoming bitter or cynical when the world does not change as quickly as they hope. It is what sustains movements for positive change across generations. Years later, when political changes finally allowed him to return to his homeland for visits, he was asked whether he felt angry about the decades of separation, the missed opportunities, the suffering that could have been prevented if his voice had been heard earlier. His response revealed the depth of his transformation through those painful years. He felt no anger, no desire for revenge, no bitterness toward those who had caused his exile. Instead, he felt gratitude for the opportunity to share these teachings with people around the world. To plant seeds of peace in many different cultures and contexts. He had learned that suffering, when met with wisdom and compassion, becomes a gift not just to the person who suffers, but to everyone whose life they touch. The pain of separation from his homeland had taught him that true belonging is not geographical, but spiritual. The experience of being silenced had taught him new ways to communicate that reached deeper than political rhetoric. The rejection by both sides of the conflict had freed him to serve a higher cause that transcended all political divisions. What had seemed like the greatest tragedy of his life had become the source of his greatest service to humanity. This is the ultimate teaching of the warrior of peace, that our greatest enemies often become our greatest teachers. The people who cause us suffering are offering us the opportunity to develop qualities we never knew we possessed. Patience, forgiveness, understanding, unconditional love. They are challenging us to find sources of strength and peace that do not depend on external validation or favorable circumstances. They are forcing us to discover the unshakable foundation of our own true nature. When you understand this deeply, it changes everything about how you respond to conflict in your own life. That family member who constantly criticizes you, that coworker who takes credit for your ideas, that neighbor who plays music too loud, that political leader whose policies you despise. They are not enemies to be defeated, but teachers offering you the chance to practice patience and compassion. That does not mean accepting abuse or failing to set appropriate boundaries. It means responding from wisdom rather than reactive emotion, from love rather than fear, from understanding rather than judgment. The stories from this war teach us that peace is not the absence of conflict, it is the presence of understanding. It is the recognition that everyone, including those who seem to be your enemies, is struggling with the same fundamental human needs for security, love, and meaning. When you can see the fear and pain underneath someone's aggressive behavior, you naturally respond with compassion rather than counter-aggression. This does not guarantee that they will change their behavior, but it guarantees that you won't add more hatred and division to an already troubled world. And sometimes, miraculously, your refusal to respond with hatred creates the space for transformation to occur. As we continue this journey together, you will discover how this understanding becomes practical in dealing with your own difficult emotions and relationships. You will learn the specific techniques that allow you to respond to anger with mindfulness, to fear with courage, to hatred with love. But for now, rest in the recognition that every person who challenges you is offering you the opportunity to become a warrior of peace yourself, someone who responds to hatred with love, to fear with understanding, to division with the recognition of our shared humanity. This is the path of the warrior of peace. It is not about defeating others, but transforming oneself. It is the path of seeing every conflict not as an obstacle to overcome, but as an invitation to deepen one's capacity for compassion. In the end, the real battle is not against others, but against the forces within us that seek to divide, judge, and separate. The greatest victory is not over external enemies, but over the inner patterns of fear, hatred, and division that hold us back from living in harmony with all beings. The true warrior of peace knows that the only real battle is the one fought within, and when that battle is won, peace will follow. So, wherever you are in your life, whatever struggles you may face, remember that the path of peace begins within you. It begins with the recognition that your true home is always available to you, right here, right now. It begins with the understanding that every moment is an opportunity to cultivate love, understanding, and compassion, no matter the circumstances. You are already home, and from this place of inner peace, you can transform not just your own life, but the world around you. The power to create peace lies within you, and the choice to walk the path of a warrior of peace is yours. A key teaching in Buddhist psychology focuses on how to work with anger when it arises within us. This is not about pretending anger does not exist or expressing it in harmful ways, but rather about developing a different relationship with this powerful emotion. Through this approach, both anger and our understanding of ourselves can transform. In many cultures, anger is often categorized as either good or bad, something to suppress or let out. Buddhist psychology, however, offers a third path, one that is so simple it can be practiced by anyone, yet profound enough to heal emotional patterns passed down over generations. This concept became clear in a story about a young boy who visited a peaceful monastery every summer with his younger sister. Both children sought to learn mindfulness practices that would bring more peace into their lives. Yet the boy carried a heavy burden, one many children know all too well, the expectation of anger rather than comfort when he was hurt or in need. The boy had grown up in a home where his father would react with irritation and blame whenever he was hurt. Instead of comfort, the boy would hear his father scold him, "How could you be so careless?" or "Why were not you paying attention?" even when the boy was physically hurt. The emotional sting of criticism left a deeper wound. Over time, the boy made a solemn vow to himself. When he grew up and had children, he would never respond with anger or blame. He would show love and care instead. This commitment to break the cycle of harsh responses became a guiding flame of hope in his heart. This promise, though sincere, was tested during a summer at the monastery. One day, while the boy was playing, his sister and another girl decided to play on a rope hammock. The joyful laughter of children filled the air as they swung happily. But in an instant, something went wrong. The other girl lost her balance and fell. Blood poured from her injury, and her cries echoed through the quiet monastery. At that moment, the boy's anger flared up. Instead of rushing to offer the comfort he had promised himself, he felt a sudden surge of anger, the words, "stupid," forming on his lips, just as his father might have said. In that moment, all his intentions evaporated. The same reaction that had once wounded him now arose in him, and he realized, to his shock, that he was exactly like his father. But here is where the story takes a remarkable turn. The boy had been learning mindfulness during his time at the monastery. With enough self-awareness, he caught himself before speaking those harsh words. He had learned to observe his emotional patterns without being swept away by them. Instead of acting on his anger, he stepped back and watched as others helped the injured girl. His heart raced, and he realized what almost happened. Guided by the walking meditation practice he had learned, he began to walk slowly, breathing deeply to calm himself, creating space for understanding to arise. With each mindful step and breath, a profound realization dawned. He was not so different from his father after all. The same energy of anger that had been directed at him in his childhood now lived inside him, ready to be passed on to the next generation unless he learned to transform it. As he continued walking, breathing in awareness and breathing out understanding, he began to see his father in a new light. His father was not a bad person who intentionally hurt him. His father, too, had inherited these emotional patterns, passed down through generations. The boy's awareness deepened. He saw that both he and his father were victims of what Buddhism calls habit energy, deeply ingrained patterns of reaction that are passed down from one generation to the next. Unless someone recognizes them and transforms them, these patterns are below the level of conscious choice, which is why good intentions alone cannot stop the cycle of hurt. The boy realized that if he did not learn to transform his own patterns through mindfulness, he would inevitably pass them on to his future children. But he also saw something hopeful. By practicing awareness and compassion, He could not only change his own future, but also heal the past. The patterns that had been carried by his ancestors could be healed by his transformation. When this intention to practice and transform was born in his heart, something beautiful and unexpected happened. His anger and resentment toward his father melted away, replaced by a deep desire to share what he had learned with him. He wanted to say, "I have discovered that I carry the same kind of reactive energy you did, and I want us to practice together so we can both be free from these patterns that have caused so much suffering." This moment of clear seeing and mindful awareness led the boy to discover the path to healing that extended in both directions, toward the future and toward the past. He realized that transformation happens not by fighting against difficult emotions, but by understanding them so deeply that they lose their power to control us. This is the essence of mindfulness of anger, a practice that can free not just individuals, but entire family lines from cycles of reactive suffering. To understand how this transformation works, we need to explore Buddhist psychology's teachings about the nature of consciousness itself. According to this ancient wisdom, consciousness is like a vast lake with depths that extend far below the surface. The upper layer is called mind consciousness, where we experience moment-to-moment thoughts, emotions, and reactions to life. It is where we plan, worry, remember, react, and respond to whatever is happening around us. But beneath this surface lies what Buddhism calls store consciousness, a deeper realm where all our experiences, memories, and inherited patterns are stored like seeds, waiting for the right conditions to sprout. This is where the boy's pattern of anger had been stored since he was very small, likely from the first time his father responded with irritation instead of comfort when he was hurt. Each time this pattern was triggered, it became stronger, more likely to arise automatically when similar conditions appeared. Buddhism teaches that we all carry many different seeds in our store consciousness. There is a seed of anger, yes, but also seeds of compassion, fear, courage, judgment, acceptance, and understanding. The seeds that grow into full emotional experiences depend on which ones receive attention through our choices and mental habits. When the boy saw the injured girl and felt anger arise, what was happening was that his seed of anger had been touched by the situation and had sprouted into what Buddhism calls a mental formation, a temporary arising of emotional energy in his mind. Consciousness. This is completely natural and not a sign of spiritual failure. Everyone carries seeds of difficult emotions, and they will arise when triggered. The question is not whether these emotions appear, but how we relate to them when they do. This is where the practice of mindfulness becomes revolutionary. Instead of immediately acting on the angry thoughts or trying to suppress them, mindfulness allows us to recognize what is happening and respond consciously rather than reactively. In that moment, the boy could say to himself, "I see that anger is arising in me right now. This is the same pattern that my father carried. I do not have to act from it or be controlled by it." The practice of mindfulness of anger begins with simple recognition. Breathing in, I know that anger is in me. Breathing out, I take good care of my anger. This is not about judging the anger or trying to make it disappear. It is about acknowledging what is present with the same attention you would give to a crying child. Buddhist teachings offer a beautiful metaphor to illustrate how to work with difficult emotions. Imagine a mother working peacefully in her kitchen when she hears her baby crying in the next room. She immediately stops what she is doing and goes to the child. The first thing she does is pick the baby up, offering comfort and presence before knowing what is wrong. She does not scold the baby for crying or try to immediately fix the problem. She simply holds the baby with love and mindfulness, Often, this tender attention brings relief and comfort. In the same way, when anger arises, instead of analyzing it, expressing it, or trying to eliminate it, we can first offer it the same loving attention a mother offers her crying child. We can say to ourselves, "I see that you are here, anger. I am going to hold you with care and try to understand what you need." As the mother continues holding her baby with mindful attention, she naturally begins to understand what is wrong. Maybe the baby is hungry, tired, or uncomfortable. Similarly, when we hold our anger with mindful compassion, we often discover its deeper roots. Perhaps the anger is protecting something we care deeply about, or it might be masking hurt feelings or fear we have not acknowledged. When we listen to anger with curiosity rather than judgment, it reveals important information about our needs and values. The key to this practice is understanding that we do not have to transform ourselves into a battlefield where the good parts of us fight against the bad parts. Instead, mindfulness works like an older sister who lovingly holds and comforts a younger sibling who is upset. It does not fight anger, it embraces it with understanding and helps it transform through the power of conscious attention. This approach requires developing what Buddhism calls the energy of mindfulness, the capacity to be present with whatever is arising without being overwhelmed by it. This energy is cultivated through practices like mindful breathing and walking meditation, which train the mind to stay present and centered even when difficult emotions are moving through us. The more we practice these foundational skills, the stronger our capacity becomes to work skillfully with challenging mental and emotional states. Buddhist psychology identifies 51 different categories of mental formations, different types of thoughts and emotions that can arise in our consciousness. Some are wholesome, like compassion, gratitude, and equanimity, while others are unwholesome, like anger, jealousy, and discrimination. The practice is not about eliminating the unwholesome mental formations and keeping only the wholesome ones. It is about learning to work with all mental formations skillfully, transforming the energy of unwholesome states into wisdom and compassion. When we understand that anger is simply energy that has temporarily become stuck in a particular pattern, we can learn to work with that energy instead of being controlled by it. The boy at the monastery discovered that his anger toward his father was actually love that had become distorted by hurt and misunderstanding. When he could see his father as someone who was also carrying inherited patterns, rather than as an enemy deliberately trying to hurt him, his anger naturally transformed into compassion and a desire for mutual healing. This transformation did not occur through force or willpower, but through the natural process of clear seeing that mindfulness facilitates. When we truly understand the causes and conditions that give rise to our difficult emotions, those emotions begin to lose their grip on us. We stop taking them personally and begin to see them as impersonal patterns that arise and pass away according to natural laws. This perspective creates space for a wise response rather than an unconscious reaction. The practice of mindfulness of anger can be cultivated in everyday life. When you notice anger beginning to build, perhaps as tension in your jaw, heat in your chest, or harsh thoughts toward someone, you can pause and breathe mindfully. Instead of acting on the anger or trying to push it away, you can simply say to yourself, "Anger is here. I see you, and I am going to take care of you." Then, continue breathing mindfully, allowing space for the emotion to be present without letting it control your actions. Often, if you can stay present with the anger for just a few moments, Without feeding it with more angry thoughts or suppressing it, it will naturally begin to reveal its deeper message and transform into something more manageable. This practice extends far beyond individual healing and can even bring healing to relationships and entire family systems. When you respond to someone else's anger with mindfulness, rather than reactivity, you create the possibility for transformation, not just within yourself, but in the people around you. Instead of escalating conflicts through reactive responses, you become a source of peace and understanding, capable of interrupting cycles of hurt and retaliation. The young boy's story shows that healing can reach both forward and backward through time. When he transformed his own angry patterns through mindful awareness, he ensured that these patterns would not be passed on to his future children, but through the mysterious interconnectedness of life. His healing also brought peace to the ancestors who had carried these same struggles without knowing how to transform them. The power of mindfulness of anger is not just personal. It can break generational cycles of suffering. It teaches us that we are not doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past. Instead, we can transform our patterns through awareness, creating a future where anger no longer holds sway over us, and compassion and understanding can guide our actions. When we truly understand and embrace our emotions, they lose their power to control us. Instead of being slaves to our anger, we become masters of it, using its energy to fuel transformation and healing in our lives and in the lives of those around us. This is the beauty of mindfulness practice. When we transform our relationship with our own emotions, we create the potential for deep and lasting change, not just for ourselves, but for future generations as well. This is the profound promise of mindfulness practice, that individual transformation ripples out to heal not just our immediate relationships, but the entire web of connections that extends through past and future generations. Every moment of conscious response rather than unconscious reaction adds to the collective reservoir of wisdom and compassion available to all beings. Every time we choose to hold our anger with mindful compassion rather than expressing it harmfully or suppressing it unhealthily, we are participating in the healing of the world. There is a moment in every person's life when they have the opportunity to look honestly in the mirror and see not just themselves, but the long line of ancestors whose patterns and struggles live on through them. This moment of recognition can be devastating or liberating, depending on whether we meet it with judgment or compassion. What you are about to discover is how one young person's moment of startling self-recognition became a doorway to healing that reached both backward through generations of inherited pain and forward into a future free from cycles of unconscious suffering. The boy at the monastery had reached that crucial moment during his walking meditation, after witnessing his own reactive anger toward the injured girl. As he continued to breathe mindfully and walk slowly through the peaceful grounds, allowing his nervous system to settle and his mind to clear, a profound understanding began to emerge that would change everything about how he saw himself, his father, and the nature of family patterns. He began to recognize something that Buddhist psychology calls continuation, the understanding that we are not separate, isolated individuals who spring into existence from nowhere, but rather living expressions of all the experiences, patterns, and energies that have been passed down through our family lines. He started to see that he was literally a continuation of his father, carrying not just physical genes, but emotional and mental patterns that had been transmitted through countless interactions and examples. This was not an abstract philosophical concept, but a lived realization that he could feel in his body and mind. The energy of anger that had arisen when he saw the injured girl was not really his anger in any personal sense. It was the same energy that had been moving through his family line, perhaps for generations. His father's harsh reactions to childhood injuries probably came from his father's father, who had learned it from his father before him. Stretching back through a long line of people who had never discovered a different way to respond to their own pain and overwhelm. The Buddhist teaching calls this habit energy, patterns of reaction that become so deeply ingrained, they operate below the level of conscious choice. These patterns get transmitted, not through formal teaching, but through countless small moments of modeling and response. Every time his father had reacted with irritation instead of comfort when he was hurt, that pattern was being passed on, stored in the boy's developing nervous system as the normal way adults respond to children's pain. But what made this realization truly transformative, rather than simply depressing, was the boy's growing understanding that he and his father were both victims of this inherited pattern. His father had not chosen to be harsh any more than the boy had chosen to carry anger toward injured people. They were both caught in what Buddhism calls samsara, the cycle of unconscious suffering that continues until someone develops enough awareness to interrupt it. This shift in perspective was like watching the sun rise after a long, dark night. Instead of seeing his father as someone who had deliberately chosen to hurt him, the boy began to see his father as someone who was also suffering under the weight of inherited patterns he had never learned to transform. His father's irritation and blame probably came from his own childhood experiences of not receiving comfort when he was hurt, and from the overwhelming stress of trying to protect and provide for his family without adequate emotional resources. When the boy could see his father as a fellow victim rather than as an enemy, something miraculous happened in his heart. The anger and resentment that had lived there for years simply began to dissolve, replaced by a deep sense of compassion and understanding. He found himself thinking, my father has been carrying this burden of reactive patterns his whole life. How much he must have suffered, never knowing how to respond differently. How lonely he must have felt, trapped in reactions he could not control. This compassionate understanding did not excuse harmful behavior or suggest that children should simply accept poor treatment. Rather, it offered a perspective that could heal the wounds of the past while creating the possibility for a different future. The boy realized that his father's harsh reactions had come from pain and overwhelm, not from lack of love. His father had probably wanted to be a good parent, but simply did not have the tools or awareness to respond differently when his own stress and inherited patterns were triggered. With this understanding came a profound desire for liberation, not just for himself, but for his father, and for all the ancestors who had carried these same struggling patterns without knowing how to transform them. The boy began to see that if he could learn to respond differently through mindfulness practice, he could break the chain of unconscious transmission and ensure that future generations would not have to carry these same burdens. But even more remarkably, he sensed that somehow his healing could reach backward as well as forward. Buddhist teaching speaks of the mysterious interconnectedness of all life, suggesting that when we transform our own patterns through conscious awareness, that transformation ripples out to touch everyone whose life has intersected with ours. The ancestors who had carried these same struggles without resolution could somehow find peace through the healing work of their descendants. This understanding gave birth to a beautiful intention in the boy's heart. Instead of wanting to escape from his family or prove that he was different from his father, he found himself longing to go home and say, "Dad, I have discovered that I have the same kind of reactive energy in me that you do. I do not blame you for it anymore, because I can see that you inherited it just like I did. But I have also learned that there are practices that can help us both be free from these patterns. Would you like to practice together so we can both find peace? This shift from blame to compassion, from separation to connection, represents one of the most profound healings possible in human relationships. Instead of perpetuating cycles of hurt through resentment and distance, the boy had discovered how to transform inherited pain into shared liberation. He had learned that the very patterns that seemed to divide him from his father could actually become bridges to deeper understanding and mutual healing. The practical implications of this understanding extend far beyond individual family dynamics. When we can see ourselves and others as products of countless inherited influences, rather than as autonomous agents who choose their reactions freely, it naturally gives rise to compassion rather than judgment. That coworker who always seems defensive, that neighbor who reacts with suspicion to friendly overtures, that family member who can't seem to express appreciation. They are all carrying patterns they inherited rather than chose. This does not mean becoming passive or accepting harmful behavior without boundaries. Rather, it means responding to difficult patterns with the understanding that they arise from suffering, rather than malice. When someone reacts with anger or criticism, we can remember that they are expressing inherited pain rather than their deepest truth. This perspective naturally evokes patience and compassion, rather than counter-reactivity. The Buddhist teaching about breaking generational patterns also reveals something profound about the nature of time and healing. We usually think of time as linear. The past is finished and gone. The future has not happened yet, and healing can only affect what comes next. But according to Buddhist understanding, when we transform our inherited patterns through mindful awareness, that transformation somehow reaches across time to heal wounds that seemed permanently sealed in the past. This is not mystical thinking, but recognition of how deeply interconnected our lives really are. The ancestors who carried these patterns without resolution live on not just in our genes, but in our nervous systems, our emotional responses, and our unconscious beliefs about how life works. When we heal these patterns within ourselves, we are healing not just our own suffering, but the suffering of everyone who contributed to our becoming. The boy's story illustrates how this healing process actually works in practice. Through his mindfulness practice, he was able to recognize the inherited pattern of angry response when it arose in him. Instead of being controlled by it or judging himself for having it, he could observe it with compassionate awareness. This created space between the triggering situation and his response, a space where conscious choice became possible. In that space of mindful awareness, the pattern began to lose its automatic power. The boy could feel the familiar energy of irritation and blame arising, but he no longer had to act from it. He could recognize it as an old pattern, seeking expression, and choose instead to respond with care and helpfulness. Each time he made this conscious choice, the pattern weakened, and his capacity for compassionate response grew stronger. This process of pattern transformation through mindful awareness has profound implications for how we understand responsibility and blame in relationships. When someone hurts us through their unconscious patterns, we can hold two truths simultaneously. They are responsible for their actions, and they are also victims of forces largely beyond their conscious control. This perspective opens the door to accountability without demonization, healing without denial. The boy's realization that he was a continuation of his father also reveals something beautiful about the nature of family love. Beneath all the surface conflicts and inherited patterns, there is a deeper current of connection that can never be broken. The very patterns that seem to divide us from our family members are actually evidence of how deeply we have absorbed their influence, how much we matter to each other. When we can see inherited patterns as expressions of connection rather than sources of separation, family relationships can become opportunities for mutual liberation rather than ongoing battlegrounds. This understanding transforms how we approach the work of personal healing and growth. Instead of trying to become completely different from our families of origin, we can learn to transform the patterns we have inherited while honoring the love and struggle that shaped us. We can recognize that our parents and ancestors did the best they could with the resources and awareness available to them, while also taking responsibility for doing better. With the greater understanding we have been fortunate to receive, the practice of breaking generational patterns requires both self-compassion and determination. We need compassion for the fact that we carry patterns we did not choose, and determination to transform them through conscious practice. This is not about perfectionism or never making mistakes, but about developing the capacity to recognize unconscious patterns when they arise and respond from awareness rather than automaticity. Buddhist psychology teaches that this transformation happens naturally when we can observe our mental and emotional patterns with what they call bare awareness, seeing them clearly without adding layers of judgment, story, or identification. When the boy could observe his anger arising without thinking, "I am an angry person," or "this anger is wrong," the pattern began to lose its grip on his identity and behavior. He could see it as a temporary weather pattern moving through the sky of his consciousness rather than as a permanent feature of who he was. This perspective also offers hope for healing relationships that seem permanently damaged by years of mutual reactivity. When family members can recognize that they have all been caught in inherited patterns rather than choosing to hurt each other deliberately, conversations become possible that seemed impossible before. The boy's desire to invite his father into shared practice represents the ultimate expression of this understanding, transforming the source of division into an opportunity for connection and mutual growth. The ripple effects of breaking generational patterns extend far beyond immediate family relationships. When we learn to respond to inherited reactivity with conscious awareness, we become sources of healing energy in all our relationships. We stop perpetuating cycles of unconscious hurt and begin modeling what it looks like to respond to life's challenges from wisdom rather than conditioning. This creates a field of possibility that others can feel and potentially learn from, even if they never consciously understand what is different. Perhaps most importantly, this work of pattern transformation teaches us something profound about the nature of true maturity and spiritual development. Rather than seeing ourselves as victims of our past or heroes who have transcended it, we can understand ourselves as links in a chain of transmission that we have the power to transform. We are both products of all who came before us and ancestors to all who will come after us. This perspective brings both humility about our conditioning and empowerment about our capacity to choose differently. The boy's story shows us that the moment of recognizing our inherited patterns does not have to be a moment of despair about how deeply conditioned we are. It can be a moment of liberation when we realize that what seemed like personal failing is actually shared human struggle. And that transformation is possible, not through rejecting our inheritance, but through bringing consciousness to it. In that consciousness, patterns that have caused suffering for generations can finally find peace, and new possibilities can emerge for everyone touched by our transformation. In a world that measures revolution by the noise it makes and the institutions it destroys, there exists a quieter form of rebellion that transforms everything it touches, without firing a single shot or raising a single voice in anger. This revolution happens one breath at a time, one step at a time, one moment of conscious presence at a time. It is the revolution of awakening to the extraordinary nature of ordinary life, and it has the power to liberate not just yourself, but everyone whose life you touch, and everyone who came before you. What you are about to discover might seem impossibly simple at first, how the act of walking mindfully, drinking tea with awareness, or eating a meal in silence can become acts of profound transformation that ripple out to heal the world. But within these humble practices lies a power that tyrants fear, and that no external force can ever take away from you, the power to be fully alive, fully present, fully free in any circumstances life might bring. The understanding begins with recognizing something that most of us have forgotten in our rush through modern life. That your body and mind, which seem so separate most of the time, are actually designed to work together as one integrated whole. Right now, as you listen to these words, your body might be here in this room, while your mind is somewhere else entirely replaying a conversation from yesterday, planning tomorrow's schedule, or lost in a daydream about somewhere you would rather be. This split between physical presence and mental presence is so common, we think it is normal, but it is actually a form of suffering that keeps us from experiencing the fullness of life. Buddhist teaching offers a beautifully simple remedy for this divided state of being. Between your scattered mind and your present body lies a bridge that is always available, always reliable, always calling you back home to yourself. That bridge is your breath. As soon as you place your attention on your breathing, really feeling the sensation of air entering and leaving your body, something magical happens. Your mind begins to settle into your body, and you start to become one person again instead of two. This reunification of body and mind is not just a pleasant feeling. It is the foundation for what one wise teacher called the most revolutionary act you can perform. When you breathe mindfully and bring your full attention to the simple act of taking a step, you are not just moving your body through space. You are generating what Buddhism calls the energy of freedom and solidity, a quality of presence that can transform not only your own experience, but the very fabric of reality around you. To understand how profound this practice really is, you need to recognize something that might surprise you about the nature of your existence. You are not a separate, isolated individual walking alone through life. You are a continuation of everyone who came before you. Your parents, grandparents, and all the ancestors stretching back through countless generations who struggled and suffered, and somehow found the strength to survive long enough to bring you into being. They live not just in your genes, but in your cells, your nervous system, your patterns of thinking and feeling. In a very real sense, they are walking with you in every step you take. When you walk mindfully, placing your full attention on the sensation of your feet, touching the earth, breathing consciously with each step, maintaining awareness of your body, moving through space, you are not walking alone. All your ancestors are taking that step with you. If you are free in that moment, they experience freedom. If you are peaceful, they find peace. If you are solid and grounded in the present moment, they too can rest in the stability that perhaps eluded them during their lifetimes. This is not poetic metaphor, but a recognition of how deeply interconnected life really is. As you continue to walk with this awareness, something subtle yet powerful begins to unfold. Each mindful step becomes an act of reconciliation between past and present, between what was inherited and what is being transformed now. The ground beneath your feet is no longer just soil or stone, but the living support of countless conditions that have made this moment possible. Feeling that support, the body naturally relaxes, and the mind softens its grip on old stories. With every conscious breath, you affirm that you are here, alive, and capable of choosing how you respond. The breath does not belong to the past or the future. It exists only now, quietly anchoring you in reality as it is. When attention rests with breathing, the nervous system begins to sense safety, and reactions that once erupted automatically start to slow. In that slowing, wisdom has room to appear. Mindful walking teaches this same lesson through movement. Lifting the foot, placing it down, feeling contact, shifting weight. Each action becomes complete in itself. There is nowhere else you need to go, nothing else you need to become. This simple presence interrupts the momentum of habit energy that has been carried unconsciously for generations. The body learns a new rhythm, and the mind learns that urgency is not required for life to continue. As this practice deepens, you may notice moments when old emotions surface unexpectedly. Irritation, sadness, or fear may arise without an obvious cause. Rather than seeing these as failures, mindfulness invites you to recognize them as visitors from the past, asking to be seen. These emotions are not enemies. They are messages carried forward by ancestors who did not have the conditions to listen to them fully. When you can hold these feelings with gentle attention without pushing them away or acting them out, something profound happens. The emotion begins to complete itself. Energy that was once frozen or looping endlessly finds release. This is how healing occurs, not by erasing the past, but by allowing it to finish its unfinished business in the light of awareness. In this way, personal practice becomes collective healing. You may never know the names or faces of those who first carried these patterns, but you feel their presence in your own reactions. By choosing awareness instead of unconscious repetition, you offer them something they never had, the possibility of rest. This is why mindfulness is often described as an act of love that moves across time. Gradually, compassion stops being an idea and becomes a natural response. When you encounter suffering in others, you recognize it because you have met it within yourself. Judgment loses its appeal, replaced by curiosity and care. You understand that behind every harsh word or closed heart is a history of pain seeking relief. This understanding does not make you weak. It makes your responses precise and grounded. Boundaries still matter. Awareness does not require you to tolerate harm or abandon discernment. Instead, it allows you to respond firmly without hatred, clearly without cruelty. Actions taken from this place tend to de-escalate rather than inflame, because they are not fueled by the same reactive energy that created the conflict in the first place. As mindfulness becomes woven into daily life, ordinary activities transform. Washing your hands, opening a door, hearing a bird outside, each moment offers a chance to return to yourself. Life no longer feels like something happening to you, but something you are actively participating in. This participation brings dignity to even the simplest tasks. Over time, a quiet confidence emerges. Not the confidence of control, but the confidence of trust. You trust that whatever arises can be met with awareness. You trust that you do not need to resolve everything immediately. You trust the process of learning through presence. This trust is deeply stabilizing, especially in a world that constantly demands speed and certainty. Mindfulness also reveals that happiness is not something to be achieved later. It is available in moments of genuine contact with life. A single breath taken consciously can contain peace. A single step taken with awareness can express freedom. These moments may be brief, but they accumulate, gradually reshaping the inner landscape. As this inner landscape changes, relationships naturally shift. Others may notice that you listen differently, that you pause before responding, that your presence feels steady. Some may feel invited into their own awareness by simply being near you. Others may resist, uncomfortable with the mirror your presence provides. Both responses are part of the unfolding, and neither needs to be forced. Eventually, you may realize that the practice is no longer something you do, but something you live. Mindfulness becomes the background of your experience, quietly informing how you speak, move, and decide. Life still includes difficulty, but it is no longer overwhelming in the same way. Suffering is met, not multiplied. This is how a single human life can become a turning point in a long lineage, not through dramatic gestures, but through consistent, humble attention to what is happening now. Each moment of awareness weakens the momentum of unconscious suffering and strengthens the capacity for understanding. In this light, spiritual practice is not an escape from the world, but a deep engagement with it. You show up fully for your own experience, and in doing so, you become available to others. Healing ceases to be a private project and reveals itself as a shared field of transformation. When you walk, breathe, and live with awareness, you carry forward the best of what came before while gently laying down what no longer needs to continue. This is how the past finds peace and the future finds possibility. And it all begins right here, with the next breath, the next step, the next moment, fully lived. The ancestors who carried fear, trauma, and unfinished pain continue to live through the patterns embedded in your nervous system. When you learn to walk with a level of presence that gives rise to real peace and freedom, you are not healing only yourself. You are offering release to those who came before you, touching wounds they never had the chance to soothe, extending to them a liberation they could not reach in their own lifetimes. This is why mindful walking can be understood as a true act of revolution. Its impact reaches far beyond the individual body taking the steps. Yet, this depth of transformation requires more than casual movement. It asks you to place your whole being, body, mind, and heart into each step. This is not walking while the mind drifts elsewhere, but walking as meditation, where every movement becomes a direct encounter with life itself. You slow down enough to feel the full contact between your feet and the earth. Your breathing aligns naturally with your pace. Awareness fills the body so completely that you can sense the living presence beneath you. When attention reaches this depth, ordinary experience begins to open in unexpected ways. Moving from one place to another is no longer just functional. It becomes an entry point into a dimension of life that spiritual traditions have described for centuries. This dimension is not somewhere distant or separate from daily existence. It reveals itself precisely within ordinary reality, when attention is whole and undivided. The same potential exists in every simple activity when approached with awareness. Drinking a cup of tea, for example, is usually done while the mind is occupied elsewhere, using the beverage as fuel rather than receiving it fully. When tea is drunk mindfully, the experience changes completely. The practice begins even before lifting the cup. You pause, breathe, and allow your attention to return from its scattered habits. You look at the tea as if encountering it for the first time, noticing its warmth, its color, the steam rising gently. Through this simple attention, you arrive fully in the present. When you finally take a sip, you give yourself entirely to the act. There is no planning, no rehearsing, no mental commentary. You drink with the same reverence you might bring to a sacred ritual. In that moment of complete presence, both you and the tea become fully real. Life steps out of abstraction and reveals itself directly. Most people live in a kind of waking dream, absorbed in thoughts about the past and future. In that state, life is not truly lived but constantly interpreted. Sensation is dulled, and the richness of being alive in a body is overlooked. Mindful living breaks this spell. When you are fully present, walking, listening, eating, you wake up into your actual life. You begin to discover that ordinary moments carry a depth of beauty and meaning that no external achievement can replace. This realization reshapes the way happiness is understood. Rather than chasing future conditions believed to guarantee fulfillment, you learn to receive what is already here. The habit of postponing contentment slowly loosens its grip. Mindfulness reveals that peace does not depend on rearranging circumstances, but on changing how attention meets them. This does not mean resignation or passivity. It means acting from inner steadiness rather than from fear or lack. When peace is accessed in the present moment, action becomes clearer and more compassionate. This quality of presence also transforms relationships. When attention is unified and available, others can feel it without explanation. Your presence itself becomes calming, offering a quiet reminder of what is possible. In this way, mindful living becomes a form of service. Each moment of genuine awareness adds to a shared reservoir of clarity and peace. Over time, contentment grows. Not the contentment of possessing everything, but the contentment of appreciating what is already present. This quiet satisfaction is deeply subversive in a culture driven by dissatisfaction. When joy is found in simple experiences, the constant pressure to acquire more begins to fade. Eventually, life is no longer approached as a problem to solve, but as a gift to receive. You stop trying to arrive somewhere else and learn instead to arrive more fully where you are. Freedom reveals itself as something internal and unshakable, independent of external conditions. While individual practice is powerful, its energy multiplies when shared. When people gather with a shared intention for awareness and compassion, a collective field emerges that supports everyone within it. This shared presence can be felt in moments of silence, music, or simple togetherness, when something larger than the individual becomes tangible. In such a collective space, personal struggles are held more gently. The calm of the group supports the nervous system, allowing deeper states of peace to become accessible. Practices developed in community, such as eating together in silence, harness this shared energy in a direct way. Eating mindfully with others transforms nourishment into communion. Attention rests fully with tasting, chewing, and receiving. Gratitude arises naturally as the web of conditions behind the meal becomes visible. Food is no longer just consumed, but honored as life, nourishing life. In this shared awareness, each person supports the others simply by being present. Together, a stability is created that can hold even deep suffering. What emerges is not just personal healing, but a collective awakening that none could achieve alone. The silence shared during such a meal is not empty or awkward. It is full, alive, and quietly nourishing. In that silence, attention no longer scatters into opinions, stories, or social roles. Each person has the chance to rest directly in experience, supported by the presence of others doing the same. Words become unnecessary because something deeper is being communicated beneath them. Before the first bite is taken, there is often a natural pause. Eyes rest on the food, and awareness opens to what is truly present. What appears on the plate is no longer ordinary matter, but the meeting point of countless conditions. Sunlight, rain, soil, time, effort, and care have all converged into this moment of nourishment. Seeing this clearly, gratitude arises without effort. A simple piece of bread is no longer just bread. It carries within it the warmth of the sun, the patience of the earth, and the labor of many unseen hands. In this way of seeing, food becomes a messenger of the entire cosmos, arriving to sustain this temporary body. When this understanding touches the heart, eating becomes an intimate relationship with life itself. As the food is brought to the mouth, the act is slow and deliberate. Chewing happens with full attention, allowing taste and texture to be known directly. The body receives nourishment without distraction. There is no chewing of worries, no replaying of conversations, no rehearsing of futures. Only the simple intimacy between nourishment and the one being nourished. This clarity reveals how often suffering is created unconsciously. Much of the time, eating is mixed with mental agitation. Food becomes entangled with anxiety, frustration, and endless commentary. The body receives calories, but the mind remains starved. Mindful eating untangles this confusion, allowing nourishment to be complete. In the supportive presence of others, this quality of attention is easier to sustain. When the people around you are also resting in awareness, their presence naturally invites you back whenever the mind drifts. The atmosphere itself becomes a teacher. No reminders are needed, because the collective energy quietly holds the practice. In such moments, the sense of separation softens. The person across from you is no longer experienced as separate or distant. There is a felt recognition of shared intention and shared humanity. Each person's presence strengthens the others, creating something stable and spacious enough to hold even unspoken pain. From time to time, a gentle smile may arise, not directed at anyone in particular, but born from the simple joy of being together in awareness. These small moments of appreciation deepen the healing quality of the space. Joy and gratitude ripple outward, touching everyone present without effort. What is happening in these moments is far more than eating. It is a living communion with all life. And this collective power is not limited to formal spiritual settings. It can be cultivated wherever people gather with a shared intention to be present. A family that chooses to share one meal a day in mindful silence creates its own field of healing. Friends who agree to walk together without conversation, simply sharing awareness of movement and surroundings, touch the same depth. Even strangers meeting in a meditation hall or support group can access this amplified energy. This collective presence does not depend on shared beliefs or identities. It arises from a shared commitment to awareness. When hearts and minds align toward peace, something larger than any individual effort becomes available. This is the essence of true community, not organization, but resonance. Within such a field, individual suffering is met differently. Anxiety, grief, and confusion are no longer carried alone. The collective calm gently holds what feels overwhelming in isolation. Without fixing or advising, the shared presence itself offers support. As awareness deepens in community, something shifts in how difficulty is experienced. Pain may still arise, but it is less personal, less isolating. It is seen as part of the human condition, something that can be met together rather than endured alone. This is why collective practice has always been central to mindfulness traditions. It strengthens individual practice, while also revealing that liberation is not a solitary achievement. Awakening unfolds most fully when supported by others walking the same path. Over time, this shared presence begins to influence life beyond formal practice. Conversations become slower, more attentive. Listening deepens. Reactivity softens. Even conflict is met with greater care, because the habit of returning to awareness has been strengthened again and again. The field created in shared practice does not disappear when people part ways. Its influence lingers, carried in each person's nervous system and way of being. Each individual becomes a quiet extension of that collective peace in the wider world. In this way, mindfulness practiced together becomes a living force that moves through daily life. It shapes how people speak, work, rest, and relate. The boundaries between practice and ordinary life gradually dissolve. What emerges is not perfection, but sincerity, a willingness to return again and again to what is actually happening, a trust that presence is enough, a recognition that peace is not something to be earned, but something to be remembered. As this understanding matures, the sense of being alone in life gently fades. You begin to feel supported by the visible and invisible connections that make up existence. Every breath, every step, every shared moment becomes an expression of that support. And so the revolution continues quietly, not through force or noise, but through attention, through people choosing to inhabit their lives fully, through simple acts done with care, through awareness shared, multiplied, and passed on. In this way, mindful living reveals its deepest truth. It is not a retreat from the world, but a wholehearted participation in it, a way of living that heals the past, steadies the present, and opens the future, all through the simple, radical act of being here. From this perspective, true community is not defined by form, tradition, or name. It is born the moment people choose to be present together. Wherever there is shared awareness, there is community. Wherever there is sincere attention, there is support. And wherever there is support, transformation becomes possible. When people practice together in this way, something subtle but powerful takes root. Individual effort is no longer the sole source of strength. Each person contributes their steadiness, their intention, their breath, and these merge into a collective stability that can carry far more than any single individual could manage alone. This is why moments of shared silence often feel deeper than solitary practice. The stillness is wider, more spacious, less fragile. In such a field, even long-held suffering can begin to soften. Grief that has been carried quietly for years may feel lighter, not because it has disappeared, but because it is finally being held within a larger container. Fear loosens its grip when it senses it is not alone. The nervous system, attuned to the calm of others, remembers how to settle. This shared energy does not require constant effort to maintain. It arises naturally when people align around presence. Once established, it gently supports everyone within it, like a calm current that carries even those who are tired of swimming. Simply sitting, breathing, and being together becomes enough. Over time, this collective practice reshapes how individuals move through the world. The habits of awareness cultivated in community begin to appear in ordinary moments. A pause before speaking, a deeper breath when tension arises, a greater capacity to listen without immediately reacting. These are not dramatic changes, but they are profound. Relationships begin to change as well. When people are accustomed to meeting themselves with awareness, they become more capable of meeting others the same way. Conversations slow down. Misunderstandings are met with curiosity rather than defensiveness. Even disagreements carry less hostility because there is space around them. This does not mean conflict disappears. Life continues to present challenges. Emotions still arise. Old patterns still surface. But the way these experiences are held is different. They are no longer seen as failures or threats, but as moments inviting awareness and care. The deeper insight revealed through this way of living is that peace is not fragile. It does not depend on perfect conditions. It is a capacity that grows stronger each time it is touched. The more often awareness is cultivated alone or together, the more accessible it becomes, even in difficult circumstances. Gradually, a quiet confidence develops. Not the confidence of control, but the confidence of knowing how to return. Return to the breath. Return to the body. Return to the present moment. This returning becomes a refuge that can be accessed anywhere. Seen this way, mindfulness is no longer a technique reserved for special times. It becomes a way of inhabiting life. Washing hands, answering a message, stepping outside, hearing a bird, feeling fatigue. At the end of the day, all of it becomes part of the practice. And because this way of living is grounded in reality rather than ideals, it is sustainable. It does not require withdrawing from responsibilities or becoming someone else. It asks only for sincerity and willingness. A willingness to notice. A willingness to be here. The impact of this sincerity extends beyond what can be measured. Each moment of awareness subtly influences the world it touches. A calmer presence can de-escalate tension. A patient response can interrupt old cycles. A mindful pause can prevent harm before it begins. In this sense, personal practice is never truly personal. Every breath taken with awareness contributes to the larger field of human consciousness. Every step taken in peace makes peace more available to others. This is not something that needs to be believed, it can be felt. When awareness becomes embodied in enough individuals, it begins to shape cultures, families, workplaces, and communities. Not through force, but through example. Not through argument, but through presence. This is how deep change happens quietly, steadily, from the inside out. The path is simple, but not easy. It asks for repeated choosing to come back when the mind wanders, choosing to soften when tension tightens, choosing to stay present when escape feels tempting. These small choices, made again and again, shape a life. And there is no final destination where the work is complete. Awareness deepens in layers. Understanding matures over time. Compassion expands naturally as seeing becomes clearer. The journey itself is the practice. What matters most is not how perfectly one practices, but how sincerely. Even forgetting is part of the path, as long as remembering follows. Each return strengthens the capacity to be present, just as each step strengthens the legs. In the end, mindful living reveals something both ordinary and extraordinary. That life, exactly as it is enough. That peace is not elsewhere. That freedom is not postponed. It is available, here, now. In this breath, in this step, in this shared moment of being alive. And when this is seen clearly, even briefly, something settles. The striving eases. The heart opens. Life no longer feels like something to get through, but something to meet. Fully, gently, awake. It comes into being whenever people bring their intention together around awakening, healing, and serving something larger than personal concerns. This can happen in places shaped by religion or in spaces with no spiritual label at all. It may arise in a church, a mosque, a temple, or a simple room where people gather with sincerity. It can also be felt in a neighborhood working to heal the land, or in a workplace where colleagues genuinely care about one another's well-being. What matters is not the structure or tradition, but the quality of heart and awareness that people bring into shared time. A helpful image for understanding the strength of spiritual community is a boat moving steadily across rough water. When life brings illness, loss, conflict, or uncertainty, the inner resources of a single person can feel painfully small. The river of suffering seems wide, fast, and dangerous. Yet when you allow yourself to be supported by collective practice, you no longer have to cross alone. You can rest within the shared stability of the group and let the combined wisdom and compassion carry you forward. This is not an escape from responsibility, nor a surrender of personal effort. It is an understanding that individual awakening and collective awakening are deeply intertwined. Your own practice adds strength to the community, and the community's presence supports and magnifies your inner transformation. Like musicians in an orchestra, each person must practice their own instrument, yet the beauty only appears when all the sounds come together. In the same way, collective energy can touch wounds that feel unreachable through solitary effort. When someone carries trauma, grief, or despair that feels larger than their own capacity to heal, the gentle presence of others can create the safety needed for healing to unfold. No one needs to be fixed or encouraged to feel differently. Being held in an atmosphere of unconditional acceptance allows the body and mind to remember their own natural intelligence. This is especially vital in a modern world, where many people live cut off from extended family and meaningful community. Isolation has become common, and with it come depression, anxiety, and a sense of emptiness. Even small, informal expressions of spiritual community can restore a feeling of belonging and shared meaning. Opening yourself to collective mindfulness requires a softening of rigid self-identity. It asks you to release the belief that you must manage everything alone and to receive support from something larger than personal willpower. This can feel uncomfortable at first, especially for those who learn to survive through control and independence. Yet when genuine support is felt, that vulnerability becomes a doorway rather than a weakness. With continued shared practice, it becomes clear that personal freedom cannot be separated from the freedom of others. The peace cultivated together does not belong to any one individual. It becomes part of a shared reservoir of compassion and understanding available to the wider world. Your presence, your commitment to awakening, and your willingness to support others all contribute to the transformation of human consciousness. This is the deeper gift of spiritual community, the recognition that no one has to walk the path alone. Steps feel lighter, breaths more nourishing, and moments richer with possibility. Together, something emerges that cannot be created in isolation, a living expression of peace, wisdom, and love. Within each person exists a sacred inner space containing everything needed for complete freedom from suffering. This is not poetic fantasy, but a recognition of an inner structure that lives within every human being. No distant journey is required. No special permission is needed. This inner sanctuary is always present, waiting to be discovered through 3 ancient doorways that lead to freedom. These 3 doors have been known for thousands of years and remain fully alive today. They are not distant potentials but active capacities already functioning within you, even if they have not yet been consciously cultivated. They are the living energies of awakening. The first doorway is mindfulness, the foundation of all inner development. Mindfulness is the simple ability to know what is happening while it is happening. When breathing, you know you are breathing. When walking, you know you are walking. When anger appears, you recognize that anger is present instead of being swept away by it. This simplicity is precisely what makes mindfulness transformative. Without this awareness, life is driven by unconscious habits and automatic reactions. Days pass in a kind of waking sleep. But when mindfulness awakens, a fundamental shift occurs. Awareness creates space where choice becomes possible. Patterns inherited from the past can be seen before they are acted out. Stories of transformation illustrate this clearly. A young boy was able to interrupt a cycle of inherited anger because he could recognize what was arising within him. A teacher, living decades in exile, found freedom because he could distinguish between longing and bondage. Mindfulness allowed both to observe their inner world without being controlled by it. However, mindfulness alone is not enough. It is supported by the second doorway, concentration. Concentration is the ability to keep attention steady on a chosen object without being constantly pulled away. It is the difference between a scattered beam of light and a focused one that illuminates deeply. Most attention is fragmented, jumping restlessly from thought to thought. This scattered mind cannot sustain insight. Concentration training develops stability, allowing awareness to deepen. When breathing mindfully, mindfulness knows the breath, while concentration stays with it. As concentration strengthens, mindfulness becomes more stable, and understanding grows naturally. Walking with full attention, drinking tea with awareness, listening deeply to another's pain, all of these cultivate concentration. Mindfulness and concentration support each other like two wings, lifting awareness beyond ordinary limitations. As attention stabilizes, subtler patterns become visible, inviting deeper understanding. The third doorway is insight. Insight is not intellectual knowledge, but direct seeing. It arises when mindfulness and concentration are strong enough to reveal reality clearly. Insight dissolves suffering by exposing the misunderstandings that create it. When insight appears, it changes more than thoughts. It transforms the way life is lived. Seeing interconnectedness, impermanence, and non-separation loosens the grip of fear and attachment. These three energies function as one system. Cultivating any one naturally strengthens the others. They already exist within you, like fragrance within a flower. Practice does not add something new. It uncovers what has always been present. As obstacles fall away, what was hidden reveals itself. The three doors remain open, inviting you again and again to step through. Each moment of presence deepens freedom. Each mindful breath contributes not only to personal peace, but to the healing of the larger world. Each time attention returns to the present moment, something subtle realigns. You are no longer lost in habit or carried unconsciously by old momentum. You are here, aware, alive. This simple returning is already an act of liberation. When presence replaces distraction, the mind gathers itself, and concentration quietly strengthens without force. As concentration matures, awareness becomes more refined. You begin to notice movements of thought and emotion that once passed unseen, a tightening in the chest before words are spoken, a familiar story arising just before irritation takes over, a wave of sadness forming long before it becomes overwhelming. Seeing these patterns early changes everything. What was once automatic becomes optional. From this stability, insight begins to unfold naturally. Insight is not something you manufacture or chase. It appears when the mind is clear enough to see what has always been true. You recognize how suffering is created through misunderstanding, how clinging gives shape to fear, how separation is largely an illusion sustained by habit. This seeing is immediate and embodied. It does not depend on belief. When insight arises, it loosens the structures that keep suffering in place. Anger no longer feels solid or justified in the same way. Desire no longer promises lasting fulfillment. Fear no longer feels like an absolute truth. These experiences may still arise, but they no longer dominate. They pass through awareness like weather through an open sky. Mindfulness, concentration, and insight are not stages to complete one by one. They function together in every genuine moment of practice. When you notice your breath, attention steadies. When attention steadies, understanding deepens. When understanding deepens, compassion naturally follows. The process is organic, not mechanical. This understanding changes the way effort is approached. Practice is no longer driven by striving or self-improvement. It becomes an act of remembering. You are not trying to become better than you are. You are learning to recognize what has been present all along, beneath layers of distraction and conditioning. Because these capacities are already within you, practice can happen anywhere. There is no need to wait for perfect conditions. Standing in line, washing dishes, hearing traffic, feeling impatience, each moment holds the same potential as formal meditation. What matters is the quality of attention brought to the experience. Gradually, daily life itself becomes the training ground. Walking is no longer just movement from one place to another. It becomes an opportunity to feel contact with the earth. Breathing becomes a reminder that life is happening now, not later. Even difficult emotions become teachers, pointing toward places that need awareness rather than resistance. As this way of living stabilizes, something else becomes clear. Inner freedom is not separate from the well-being of others. When awareness deepens in one person, it subtly affects those around them. A calmer presence invites calm. A patient response interrupts habitual conflict. A mindful pause creates space where harm might otherwise occur. This is how individual practice naturally extends into collective healing. Without intention to change the world begins to change through changed ways of being. Families soften. Conversations slow. Workplaces become less reactive. These shifts may seem small, but their impact accumulates. Seen in this light, awakening is not an escape from ordinary life. It is a fuller participation in it. Responsibilities remain. Challenges continue. Loss and uncertainty still arise, but they are met from a different place. There is more room around experience, more kindness toward what appears. Over time, trust develops. Not trust in outcomes, but trust in the capacity to meet whatever arises. This trust does not eliminate pain, but it prevents pain from turning into despair. You know how to return to the breath, to the body, to the present moment. This knowing becomes a refuge that does not depend on circumstances. The inner sanctuary is not something hidden or mysterious. It is revealed whenever attention rests fully in experience. The three doorways are always available because they are expressions of your own awareness. You do not enter them once and leave them behind. You pass through them again and again, each time more gently, more naturally. As practice continues, the sense of separation between inner and outer begins to dissolve. The boundary between meditation and life grows thinner. Awareness flows more easily from one moment to the next. Even forgetting becomes less of a problem, because remembering comes more quickly and without self-judgment. At a certain point, the question shifts. Instead of asking how to practice more, you begin to notice how often awareness is already present, how often the body knows how to breathe, how often the heart responds with care before thought interferes. This recognition brings a quiet joy, simple and unforced. Joy here is not excitement or pleasure. It is the ease of being aligned with reality, the relief of not fighting what is, the warmth of meeting experience with honesty. This joy can coexist with sadness, fatigue, or uncertainty. It does not require their absence. When lived consistently, this way of being reshapes identity. You no longer define yourself solely by roles, stories, or past events. Identity becomes more fluid, less defended. You are someone who is aware, someone who can respond rather than react. This flexibility is a form of freedom. And this freedom is not private. It naturally expresses itself through care for others. Listening becomes deeper. Speech becomes more intentional. Actions become less driven by fear and more guided by understanding. Compassion arises not as a moral duty, but as a natural response to seeing clearly. The journey does not end here. Awareness continues to deepen in ways that cannot be predicted. Each layer of understanding reveals another. Yet there is no sense of lack. Nothing essential is missing. Practice is no longer about reaching a future state, but about inhabiting this moment fully. In this inhabiting, something settles. The nervous system relaxes. The mind becomes less urgent. The heart opens without effort. Life feels less like a problem to solve and more like a process to participate in. Even uncertainty becomes workable. This is the quiet promise fulfilled again and again, that freedom is not distant, that peace does not require perfection, that the path is not elsewhere. It is here, in the simple act of knowing what is happening as it happens, staying with it gently, and allowing understanding to arise in its own time. As this understanding settles more deeply, ordinary moments begin to carry a different weight. The beginning of a day no longer feels like a rush into obligation, but an invitation to arrive. Waking up becomes an opportunity to notice the body breathing on its own, to feel the simple fact of being alive before thought takes over. That first conscious breath sets a tone, not by force, but by recognition. Small routines slowly transform. Brushing teeth is no longer something to finish quickly, but a chance to feel movement, temperature, and sensation. Preparing food becomes an encounter with color, texture, and gratitude, rather than a task to complete. Looking into a mirror becomes less about judgment and more about acknowledgement, meeting yourself with the same kindness you would offer someone you love. These shifts do not require extra time. They require a different quality of attention. The same actions, performed with awareness, become nourishing rather than draining. Over time, this changes how life is experienced at a fundamental level. Days feel less fragmented. Moments feel more whole. Challenges still appear, sometimes unexpectedly. Anxiety may arise before important events. Impatience may surface in familiar relationships. Old fears may resurface when conditions trigger them. Yet these experiences no longer feel like failures. They are recognized as invitations to practice, reminders to return rather than reasons to judge yourself. When anxiety arises, it points toward a peace that does not depend on outcomes. When impatience appears, it offers a chance to practice listening more deeply. When fear surfaces, it invites curiosity instead of avoidance. Each difficulty carries within it the same potential for awakening that formal practice does. This is how teachings once heard as ideas begin to live inside experience. Stories of transformation are no longer distant or symbolic. They reflect possibilities unfolding in your own life. The inherited patterns you carry are no longer prisons. With awareness, they become doorways. Walking mindfully is no longer just a technique. It becomes a way of remembering connection with the earth beneath your feet. Drinking tea becomes a reminder of interdependence, of rain, soil, sunlight, and human care converging in a single cup. These simple acts quietly heal not only you, but the unseen lineages of struggle and resilience carried through generations. Gradually, a sense of trust grows. Trust not that life will always be easy, but that you have the capacity to meet it. This trust is grounded in direct experience. You have returned to the breath countless times. You have seen thoughts arise and pass. You have felt emotions soften when held in awareness. This builds confidence without arrogance. Confidence here is gentle. It does not insist or dominate. It knows how to wait. It knows how to listen. It knows how to begin again. When you forget, you remember. When you react, you pause. When you tighten, you soften. Each return reinforces the path. Over time, the boundary between practice and life becomes almost invisible. Awareness no longer feels like something you do. It feels like something you inhabit. Even moments of distraction are held within a larger field of presence. Forgetting becomes shorter. Remembering becomes easier. The mind grows quieter, not because thoughts disappear, but because they are no longer believed so completely. The body becomes a trusted ally rather than something to ignore or control. Sensations are felt directly, without immediate commentary. This brings a sense of groundedness that does not depend on circumstances. As awareness stabilizes, compassion flows more freely. Seeing clearly naturally leads to care. When suffering is understood, it is no longer personal or isolated. It is recognized as part of the human condition. This recognition dissolves blame and opens the heart. Listening deepens. Words are chosen more carefully. Silence becomes comfortable rather than awkward. Relationships are no longer arenas for proving worth, but spaces for shared presence. Even conflict, when it arises, is met with more curiosity and less reactivity. This way of being subtly influences others. Without trying to teach or convince, your presence communicates something different. Calm invites calm. Patience invites patience. Awareness creates room. This is how change spreads quietly, without force. The world does not transform overnight, yet each moment of clarity contributes to a larger movement. Each person who lives with awareness adds to a collective field that supports others, even unknowingly. Personal practice is never isolated. It always participates in something larger. Eventually, it becomes clear that freedom is not a future achievement. It is an ongoing relationship with the present moment. Liberation is experienced in small, ordinary ways. In a breath fully felt. In a step taken consciously. In a response chosen instead of a reaction repeated. Nothing needs to be added to complete this path. Nothing essential is missing. The capacities required are already present, waiting to be recognized again and again. Practice is simply the act of remembering what has never been lost. As this remembering deepens, life feels less like a problem to solve and more like a reality to meet. There is space for joy and space for sorrow. Both are allowed. Neither defines you completely. Awareness holds them without struggle. In this holding, something relaxes at a deep level. The constant striving eases. The need to be elsewhere softens. There is a sense of arriving, not at a destination, but in this moment, exactly as it is. This is the quiet completion of the journey, not an ending, but a settling. The path remains open. Each breath invites you back. Each moment offers itself as a doorway. The way is always available, and you are always welcome to return. When you step outside into the world, you can remember that every step you take carries the potential to generate stability and freedom. You are not simply moving from one place to another. You are engaging in an ancient form of meditation that has the capacity to heal deeply rooted patterns carried through generations. Each mindful step becomes an act of restoration. Those who came before you walk with you in this way. Through your calm, they touch calm. Through your awareness, they encounter release. The challenges that appear during your day, the congestion that strains your patience, the colleague who seems impossible to satisfy, the sudden problems that disrupt your plans, all become living classrooms. They offer continuous opportunities to transform habit and reactivity into understanding, rather than labeling difficult situations as enemies of your happiness. You can pause and breathe, remembering that each challenge invites the cultivation of patience, clarity, and compassion. When someone speaks with sharpness or criticism, you can recall the practice of deep listening. You can listen not only to words, but to the fear, pain, or confusion beneath them. This does not mean tolerating harm, but it does mean choosing a response rooted in awareness instead of reflex. What you have understood about inherited patterns begins to reshape how you see your own history. You no longer need to define yourself as trapped by your upbringing or destined to repeat what came before. You can recognize yourself as a conscious continuation, someone capable of transforming what was received and offering something different to those who come after. Healing does not require dramatic gestures. It unfolds through small moments of recognition and choice. When anger starts to rise, you can meet it with mindfulness, seeing it as a temporary movement of energy rather than as who you are. You can hold it gently, with the same care a parent offers a distressed child. In this way, emotion becomes something to understand, rather than something to suppress or act out. Presence creates space, and within that space, freedom becomes possible. The supportive energy of shared presence can also be cultivated quietly in everyday life. You create it whenever you bring full attention to another person, whether they share your spiritual interests or not. Your way of listening, your steadiness, your openness become a subtle invitation. Others may not know why they feel more at ease around you, but something in them responds to genuine presence. The essential capacities of mindfulness, concentration, and insight remain available in every ordinary moment. Each conscious breath strengthens all three. Each time you notice what is happening instead of getting lost in stories, your ability to see clearly grows. You do not need ideal conditions or long retreats to access this freedom. It is woven into the fabric of daily life. Transformation unfolds gradually, like seeds taking root in fertile soil. There is no need to become flawless or to eliminate mistakes. What matters is returning again and again to awareness when you notice you have wandered. Every return matters. Each moment of presence contributes not only to your own liberation, but to the healing of the larger world. Your awakening is never isolated. Each time you choose understanding over judgment, compassion over criticism, you strengthen a collective field of wisdom that supports all beings. The effects of your inner work extend farther than you can measure, touching lives you may never know, across distances and generations. This is why your commitment carries weight. You are not only tending to your own well-being, you are participating in the slow, necessary healing of human consciousness. Each person who learns to meet fear with courage, anger with understanding, division with recognition of shared humanity, contributes to a world shaped by care rather than conflict. The sacred realms spoken of in spiritual traditions are not distant rewards reserved for the future. They are present here, now, accessible through simple awareness. When you breathe consciously, walk with attention, listen with openness, and respond with kindness, you are already living in that dimension of reality. As night approaches and you prepare to rest, you can carry this understanding with you. Even sleep can become a practice. Instead of drifting into rest, while the mind remains tangled in plans and worries, you can enter sleep as an act of letting go. Slow your breathing. Allow each exhale to release the weight of the day. You can quietly remind yourself, I have arrived. I am home. Feel your body resting fully, supported by the earth. Let the breath settle naturally, without effort. If thoughts about tomorrow appear, acknowledge them gently and return to the simple comfort of breathing and resting. There is nothing to solve right now, nothing to fix. This moment is for rest, for being, for presence. As you sleep, the seeds of insight and compassion that have been nourished continue to grow quietly. Understanding integrates on its own. You awaken with a little more space, a little more ease, a little more capacity to meet life with openness. The change unfolding within you does not depend on force or control. It follows the natural rhythms of healing, like flowers opening in their own time. What you have touched remains with you, not as something to remember, but as living wisdom expressing itself through how you speak, how you act, how you meet each moment. Rest now with the knowing that your life matters, that your presence makes a difference, that each breath you take contributes something gentle and necessary to the world. Sleep peacefully, trusting that tomorrow will offer new chances to live this understanding, to walk lightly, and to share peace simply by being who you are. Morning will come quietly, whether you notice it or not. Light will enter the room, sounds will return, and the body will begin to stir. In that first moment, between sleeping and waking, there is a brief opening where habit has not yet taken over. If you meet that opening with awareness, the day begins already rooted in stability. You may notice the weight of the body against the bed, the simple rhythm of breathing, the subtle sensations of warmth or coolness. Nothing needs to be added. Nothing needs to be improved. Awareness alone is enough to establish a foundation of calm. From this place, getting out of bed becomes an extension of practice rather than a break from it. As you stand and take your first steps, the body remembers what it means to arrive. Each movement can be slow enough to be felt, natural enough to be unforced. The floor beneath your feet becomes real. The space around you becomes vivid. You are not rushing toward the day, you are entering it. Thoughts may already be forming, plans assembling themselves, concerns resurfacing. They do not need to be pushed away. Simply recognizing them changes their power. They are seen as mental events rather than commands that must be obeyed. Awareness creates choice, where there was once compulsion. Throughout the day, this same choice presents itself again and again. When the mind tightens around an expectation, you can feel it. When impatience begins to form, you can sense it in the body. These signals become allies instead of warnings. They tell you when it is time to return. Returning does not mean retreating from life.
It means inhabiting it more fully. When you answer an email, you can feel your hands on the keyboard. When you speak to someone, you can feel the sound of your own voice and the presence of another human being in front of you. Even tasks you once considered dull or burdensome reveal layers of experience when attention is present.
There will be moments when awareness fades completely. Old habits will reassert themselves.
You may speak too quickly, react sharply, or lose yourself in worry. This is not a failure. It is part of the rhythm of practice. The moment you notice you have been lost is the moment awareness
has already returned. This noticing is gentle. It does not scold. It does not demand perfection. It simply opens the door again. Each time you walk back through it, the path becomes more familiar. Over time, you begin to trust this process, not because you control it, but because you have seen its reliability.
As trust grows, fear loosens its grip. Fear thrives on the belief that you are alone and unprepared. Presence reveals that you are supported by something deeper than circumstance.
Even when outcomes are uncertain, you discover a steadiness that does not depend on guarantees.
This steadiness changes how you engage with others. You listen more than you interrupt. You respond rather than react. You notice the humanity behind behaviors that once triggered irritation or judgment.
This does not make relationships effortless, but it makes them more honest and less entangled. In difficult conversations, awareness creates space for silence. Silence allows words to settle. It allows emotions to be felt without being acted out. In that space,
something wiser often emerges on its own. You find yourself saying less, but meaning more. Over time, the urge to prove, defend, or control begins to soften. Not because you have forced it to, but because you no longer need it in the same way. When identity is less rigid, interaction becomes lighter. You are no longer protecting an image. You are simply participating in life as it unfolds.
This participation brings a quiet joy,
not the excitement of stimulation, but the contentment of being aligned. Joy appears in small moments, a shaft of light on a wall, the sound of footsteps passing by.
The feeling of air moving across skin. These moments do not demand attention. They offer themselves when you are available. Availability becomes the central quality of your life. Available to your own experience. Available to others. Available to what is actually happening, instead of what you think should be happening. This availability is not passive. It is deeply engaged, responsive, alive. From this place, action becomes clearer. Decisions are made with less inner conflict. You still consider consequences and responsibilities, but they are no longer clouded by constant agitation. Clarity does not mean certainty. It means honesty. You know what you feel. You know what you see.
You act from there.
As days and weeks pass,
the cumulative effect of this way of living becomes noticeable. The body holds less tension. Sleep comes more easily. Emotional waves rise and fall without overwhelming you. Problems still arise, but they do not define the entire landscape of your experience. You begin to recognize a deeper rhythm beneath daily events, a sense that life is moving through you as much as you are moving through it. Effort and ease find a natural balance.
You know when to apply energy and when to rest. This understanding extends to how you view the world. Suffering no longer appears as a personal punishment or a sign of failure. It is seen as part of a shared human condition, shaped by causes and conditions far larger than any individual. This view naturally gives rise to compassion. Compassion here is not sentimental. It is grounded in clarity. It sees pain without being consumed by it. It responds where possible and accepts where necessary. It knows its limits without closing the heart. Through this clarity, responsibility is redefined. You are responsible for your attention, your responses, your willingness to return. You are not responsible for controlling outcomes or fixing everything. This distinction brings relief. Energy once spent on self-blame becomes available for care. Care begins with yourself, but it does not end there. As your own inner environment becomes more spacious, that space is felt by others. It shows up in how you move, how you speak, how you pause. This is how presence becomes contagious without effort. Nothing about this path is dramatic from the outside. It does not announce itself. It unfolds quietly, invisibly to most, yet its impact is real. Each moment of awareness subtly alters the direction of a life. Each life lived this way alters the collective current. There is no final arrival point where practice ends. Presence is renewed moment by moment. Some days feel clear, others feel dense. Both are included. The path does not reject any part of experience. It simply asks you to meet it. In meeting it, you discover that what you have been seeking was never separate from you. Freedom was not hidden elsewhere. It was obscured by distraction, by habit, by forgetting. Each act of remembering brings it closer until closeness itself dissolves. What remains is a simple intimacy with life as it is. Breathing, walking, listening, responding, resting, beginning again. This intimacy does not eliminate pain, but it prevents suffering from becoming absolute. It allows life to be lived rather than endured. And so the practice continues, not as an obligation, but as a natural expression of care. Each moment offers itself. Each breath invites you back. The way remains open, quietly waiting, exactly where you are. As you move back into the rhythms of daily life, you can remember that every step you take carries the possibility of freedom and stability. Walking is no longer just a way of getting somewhere. It becomes a quiet continuation of practice, a living meditation that reconnects you with generations before you. In each conscious step, there is the presence of those who walked before. Finding rest through your calm, touching release through your awareness. The pressures of the day, the noise of traffic, the tension of work, and the unexpected disruptions no longer stand in opposition to peace, but become gateways through which understanding can deepen. Rather than labeling difficulties as enemies of happiness, you can pause and breathe, recognizing each challenge as an invitation to grow patience, clarity, and kindness. When harsh words or criticism arise, you can return to the art of deep listening, offering attention without defense, hearing not only what is spoken, but the unspoken pain beneath it. Responding in this way does not mean surrendering your boundaries. It means choosing wisdom over habit, presence over reaction. The understanding you have touched allows you to see yourself differently within the stream of your family and history. You are no longer bound to repeat old patterns or carry inherited suffering unconsciously. You stand as a conscious point of transformation, capable of receiving what was difficult and passing on what is healed. This shift does not require dramatic change. It unfolds quietly, each time you notice an old reaction forming and choose a gentler response. When strong emotions arise, they can be met with tenderness rather than resistance. Anger, fear, or sadness become movements of energy, not definitions of who you are. Held in awareness, they soften and pass. Even in ordinary interactions, your steady presence creates small fields of peace. Without effort or explanation, your attention becomes a gift that helps others feel grounded, even if they cannot name why. Mindfulness, concentration, and insight remain accessible in every breath. You do not need perfect conditions or long retreats. Each moment of returning to what is real strengthens clear seeing. Transformation grows naturally, like seeds nourished by care. Forgetting and remembering are both part of the path. Each return to awareness matters. As rest approaches, sleep itself becomes part of practice. Breathing gently, releasing the weight of the day, you arrive fully in your body, in your bed, in this moment. There is nowhere else peace has ever lived. Thoughts about tomorrow can be acknowledged and allowed to drift away. Nothing needs to be solved now. This is time for resting, for being, for trusting the quiet intelligence of life. As you sleep, the understanding planted here continues to take root. Without effort, it weaves itself into how you see, speak, and move through the world. You awaken, not with something new to carry, but with a deeper familiarity with what has always been present. Tomorrow offers countless chances to live gently, to respond with care, and to let your presence contribute to healing in ways you may never fully see. Rest well and walk forward lightly, allowing peace to express itself wherever your path unfolds,